Hi guys, this is an AI and now on with the story. Chapter 41 Memories of Help, Sensei. A 14-year-old Sasuke began speaking as he walked alongside the 19-year-old. Can you tell me about Itachi? If he was surprised by the question, Naruto didn't show it, he only smiled a little. As he began talking, Itachi Uchiha was a genius, though I'm sure you're already aware of all that, but he was also kind and put his friends first before himself. He protected a team he had just met. Because it was the right thing to do in our Chunin exams, he was a great teammate and even a greater person. He closed his eyes. I honestly believe if Danzo hadn't done whatever he did to Itachi, he would have been your sensei, and he could have definitely been one of the strongest shinobi the village has ever seen. His potential rivaled my own, and his skill with the Sharingan was far greater than mine. Sasuke's eyes widened. You mean he mastered the Sharingan to such an extent? Naruto nodded. Even with a newfound Mangekyo, Itachi was able to use it to its fullest extent. I'm jealous he learned it so easily, but I think I've finally caught up with him in terms of utilization. Sasuke thanked Naruto for the information and was quiet for a few moments before speaking again. Do you think I'll ever be strong like him? He asked in a slightly timid tone. Naruto stopped walking alongside his student, causing Sasuke to stop and give him a questioning look. There's no doubt in my mind that you'll surpass him one day, Sasuke, Naruto said, placing a gentle hand on the top of Sasuke's head with a large grin on his face. You have the latent power to become one of the strongest shinobi this world has ever seen, and one day when you're all grown up and at your peak, I want to spar against you then, because we will certainly be rivals by the time that comes to pass. Sasuke's eyes widened as he looked up at his master. He had the potential to rival someone as strong as Naruto Namikaze, the strongest shinobi in the village, by a rather large distance between the second. One day when I create peace throughout the world and become Hokage, I want you to be my right-hand man, Sasuke. I'm sure when that time comes, Itachi will be smiling at us both from above. Alright, Sasuke choked out, his throat burning as his eyes closed, fighting the tears of happiness that threatened to escape. I'll stand right beside you and one day we'll fight as equals. Naruto ruffled Sasuke's hair, his grin still standing. I welcome that future day, Naruto thought to himself. A few weeks later, why are these mist Anbu trying to take us down? Sasuke shouted as he and Naruto ran through the trees with several Anbu operatives from the hidden mist trailed them at quick speeds. Naruto, who was frowning slightly, shook his head. I don't know, they hate bloodlines in the hidden mist, so maybe that's why. Naruto cursed. He would rather not fight the mist Anbu and potentially cause a war between the leaf and mist, but outrunning them wasn't an option either, due to the fact that Sasuke wasn't even close to his speed just yet. Sasuke, keep going, I'll hold them off while you escape. Sasuke glared at his teacher. No, we fight together, as if to put an end to the beginning argument. Sasuke drew his sword and positioned himself to be ready for the Anbu. Several Anbu lined up along the branches of the trees that stood several meters away from the branches Naruto and Sasuke stood on. You two are to come before us, Naruto Namikaze. The Nine Tails will come back to the village and be extracted. Naruto shook his head. If you think I'll let you subject my friend to slavery all over again, then his Sharingan burst to life. You're sorely mistaken, as well as you're corrupt. Mizukage. The Anbu were silent before they charged the two Sharingan wielders. So you're the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox, huh? A rough voice spoke as several ninja came from behind Naruto and Sasuke and easily sliced straight through the Anbu. Naruto's eyes widened before he grinned. You son of a bitch. Naruto spoke as he flashed in front of the man who still towered over him in height and extended his hand, which the man grasped with a grin under his bandages. It's been a while, Zabooza. That it has. Naruto, a woman with dark red hair that reached to her ankles with pale smooth skin and sparkling green eyes, looked at Naruto weirdly. Do you know these guys, Zabooza? She asked. Zabooza glanced back at the woman who had two men on each side of her, one with tall blue hair and an eye patch, and another one with a weird sword on his back and a pair of glasses, a shy look in his eyes. Yeah, before I joined up with you guys I ran into the brat and this man Naruto Namikaze. He spared my life as well as Haku's when he had every right to kill us. I owe him a great debt. Mei looked at Naruto with a bit of a hungry look in her eyes. Is that so? She said to herself, licking her lips. Perhaps I can give him a test run. Naruto laughed awkwardly. I'm spoken for. Mei chuckled and walked up to the blonde, trailing her smooth and slender fingers along his jawline, her eyes appraising him. You'll buckle, she whispered sensually in his ear before backing away. Naruto turned to Sasuke, a healthy blush on his face. If you tell Anko about this I will banish you from the village when I become Hokage. Sasuke smirked in turn. I wouldn't even think about it, he drawled out. Naruto sighed and ran a hand through his golden locks. Thank you for the assist, all of you, Naruto said, gesturing to the small group. I didn't want to cause an incident between the leaf and the mist. Zabooza dismissed the thanks with a wave of his hand. Nonsense, we're always happy to tear apart that bastard's minions. He then glanced at Mei. Why don't you come to camp with us? It's a safer place than where we are currently positioned. That's a good idea, Mei chirped, clapping her hands together. Naruto-kun, you can sleep with me and your friend can sleep with Chojuro and ow. The man with the eye patch began speaking. Mei-sama, I don't recommend bringing two strangers, especially from a different village, back to our hideout. They could be spies from the. He stopped when a massive amount of killing intent emitting off of Mei hit him full force. Shut up, ow, or I'll kill you. Holy shit, she scares me, Naruto whispered to Zabooza, who nodded in agreement. Me too. What was that? Mei hissed and made Naruto, Sasuke and Zabooza take a step away from the woman. Nothing, they all said in unison. Mei smiled. Good, now let's go to the base. I'm sure these fine gentlemen are tired. Actually, I'm not tired at all, and Sasuke began but stopped talking when Mei glared at him. I mean, yes ma'am, I'm worn out. Awesome, let's go. Naruto and Zabooza sent each other a look and read each other's minds. Well shit, they both thought before following Mei to the camp. A few hours later, Naruto and Sasuke sat side by side on a fallen tree log, sitting in front of a fire, both of them having flushed cheeks, with each of them holding a bottle of whiskey, both of them half empty. Ya no, Naruto spoke as he threw a pebble at Zabooza, missing by a mile as the larger man burst into laughter, drunk as well. I think you're my best friend, Zabooza, you just get me, dude. Fucking same, Zabooza laughed. I knew you were cool as shit the moment I saw you back in Wave. You pissed your pants, Sasuke said, clutching his sides as he laughed hysterically. Naruto beat the shit out of you and Haku. Haku, who was not drunk, blushed. He's right, Zabooza-sama, we were beaten rather easily and taken as prisoners. Mei, who was also drunk, pushed finger into Haku's cheek. How the hell are you not a girl? I should call you Felix II. Haku rose an eyebrow as Naruto stood up, pointing at Haku. Yes, I get the reference. Yes, your new name is Felix II. Haku. Trap, Sasuke boomed before giggling more. Guys, Zabooza said as he brought out a small baggie with what looked like shredded up leaves. Fuck the booze, let's hit this shit. Naruto's eyes widened at realizing what it was, the devil's lettuce god's forbidden tree leaf. He turned to Sasuke. Let this little bitch take the first hit. I wanna see him fucked up. Sasuke's eyes widened. You are not forcing me to smoke some weird-ass leaves. Naruto grabbed the small baggie and caught a small cone from Zabooza and began filling the paper cone with the contents of the bag. Yes, you are as your master. I forbid you to not smoke it. It'll help you put out fire jutsu faster. Sasuke, still heavily under the influence of the alcohol, sighed reluctantly and took the now completed joint. Fine, he quickly made fire appear on his thumb and lit the joint before inhaling it. After a moment he began coughing. The group laughed at Sasuke's expense as he tried to calm his coughing. Fuck all of you. Sasuke groaned, massaging his throat. Naruto grabbed the joint and smoked it a little bit. Ya know, Sasuke and I have been on this trip for about a year now and we have 2 more years to go. I'm trying to get him to become stronger, so if you guys will have us, we'll help you fight your civil war. We both need the combat training. I need it, not you, Sasuke grumbled in a jealous tone. You're a fucking monster on the battlefield. I can attest to that, Zabooza muttered under his breath as he caught the joint when Naruto threw it. Your help would be greatly appreciated. More time together. You sly dog. Naruto, just ask and I'll let you stay with me whenever you want, Mei said seductively. After taking a hit from the joint, fuck yeah, Naruto said with a small cheer. I can't wait. Naruto-sama, a ninja that had chosen Mei's side over Yagura's, shouted, we have reports of several of our own trapped in the East Quadrant at sea. Naruto nodded and looked to Zabooza. Keep up if you can, but I need to get there fast before they die. With that he vanished in a flash of yellow. Sasuke, Zabooza called out, watch over the civilians and make sure they don't try and do a surprise attack. Sasuke nodded. Yes sir, he shouted in a reply. The resistance group had taken in wayward civilians who disagreed with what Yagura was doing to those with bloodlines, so they fled and joined with Mei's and Zabooza's cause. Now Naruto's and Sasuke's as well. It had been a year since Naruto and Sasuke had joined the resistance, and to Sasuke's surprise Naruto was getting praise from everyone in the resistance, being hailed as a savior by all of the people in the resistance, having saved several lives already and in the process of saving several more. Naruto arrived at the area and found several of the resistance as shinobi, the people he had fought beside and ordered around, with a smile, lying helplessly as they were surrounded by dozens of Anbu, bleeding and injured, as Yagura stood proudly among his Anbu. Yagura, Naruto shouted as he practically teleported in front of the injured shinobi. I will not allow you to hurt my comrades anymore. Yagura looked at the blonde and saw the leaf insignia on his headband. Why is the leaf interfering with these traitors? I thought we had a neutral treaty. Naruto shook his head and took off his headband and stored it in his pocket. I fight and defend these people not as a shinobi of the hidden leaf, but as a comrade to the true hidden mist. The injured resistance fighters looked at Naruto with awe. And I will not allow your reign of terror to continue any further. Big words for a single shinobi, Yagura taunted as he gestured to his own soldiers which surrounded the small group. You're outnumbered 3-1. You have no chance of escaping here alive. Naruto grit his teeth as he unsheathed his sword. I beg to differ. I have lives to save and peace to bring. I will end you right here, right now. Yagura chuckled. Kill him, he ordered, and almost instantly the Anbu charged Naruto simultaneously. Naruto burst into a golden yellow Kurama. He shouted as a clone formed, its eyes a bright red as it grinned. You're all in trouble now, Kurama growled, using the clone as a temporary vessel before he engaged the Anbu, ripping them apart with ease. Naruto then dashed towards Yagura, who coated himself in the chakra from the 3 tails. Naruto turned back to his normal form and sucker punched Yagura across the battlefield. You will not hurt my comrades, Naruto shouted. You are not fit to be a cage of mist. You bastard, Yagura seethed before charging Naruto on all fours. Naruto easily dodged the man by body flickering behind the cage and launching a devastating kick to the back of Yagura's head, causing him to smash face down into the knee-deep water. I'm your worst opponent, Naruto whispered. Before kicking Yagura across the water, his blades now coated with a bright blue chakra, I will defend these people as if they were my own, and I will reclaim their rightful homes that you've so blatantly stripped them away from Yagura. Naruto's eyes flashed a bright red. I will never forgive you for making these good people suffer. Die, Yagura shouted as his chakra-coated mouth opened impossibly wide. A mix of dark purple and dark blue began forming, and perish with the rest of the traitors. Naruto's eyes widened as the tailed beast bomb shot forward towards the injured resistance shinobi. No! Naruto shouted as he flickered over to them in a second and crossed his arms as the tailed beast bomb clashed with his body. I will not allow this to happen, Naruto-sama. A shinobi whispered in awe as the blonde willingly took damage in order to save them, risking his life to protect their own. Tears of realization appeared in their eyes. You can do it, Naruto-sama, we believe in you. Thank you, Naruto-sama, they all shouted repeatedly. Naruto turned his head and felt a smile tug on his cheeks. I will never let you die. We're comrades now, Naruto shouted before his eyes narrowed in determination. Chakra chains slithered out of his back and wrapped around the severely condensed ball of tailed beast chakra, and he threw it into the air before a Rasengan formed in his hand, wind swirling around it as it was suddenly dyed with the same dark purple chakra the tailed beast bomb was made of. Tailed beast bomb Rasenshuriken, he roared before throwing the jutsu at the tailed beast bomb. Kurama, he shouted. Kurama, who had just finished dispatching the rest of the Anbu, nodded. Right. The clone disappeared in a poof, and Naruto was once again coated with Kurama's golden cloak before a giant fox engulfed Naruto as well as the hurt shinobi. Don't worry. You're safe, Naruto called out before the two devastating jutsu collided, causing a large explosion that made most of the shinobi squint to protect their eyes, the light just being too bright. After the dust settled, Naruto deactivated his Kurama cloak and looked at his comrades with a smile. It's alright now, Zabooza is coming with backup, I promise. He felt happy as hope appeared in their eyes. For the first time, this isn't over. Yagura spoke bitterly, his clothing torn to shred, his body beaten and battered by being caught in the explosion which had caused the water around them to evaporate completely. You side with traitors, you stupid. He was stopped when Naruto stabbed him in the heart with his sword. I said I would end your reign, didn't I? Naruto whispered as he pulled his sword out of the cage's body. Oh, was all Yagura said as he slumped to his knees, his right hand hovering over his injury. So this is defeat. His clouded eyes suddenly vanished and were replaced by clear purple eyes. Liberating. With that he fell face first into the dirt. Dead Zabooza arrived on the battlefield panting slightly for running for so long so quickly, and felt the air leave his lungs as he saw Naruto standing over a now dead Yagura. He did it, he whispered breathlessly, absolute astonishment taking over his body. Naruto had blood flowing out of his arms, but other than that the leaf shinobi seemed relatively unharmed. Breaking out of his shock, Zabooza rose a fist into the air and felt tears fall from his eyes freely. Yagura is dead. We've won. After years of fighting, years of being a missing ninja, Zabooza could finally claim to be a proud mist shinobi. He could finally be a true member of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist. He could stop running. Joy traveled through his veins as he could no longer contain the joy he felt as he fell to his knees. We won, he whispered Naruto. Ignored the burning in his forearms, knowing Kurama would heal him, and turned around to face everyone who looked up to him as if he were the next sage of six paths. Let's go tell everyone, he chirped cheerfully. Naruto, Sasuke, Mei, Zabooza, Chojuro and Haku walked through the Mist Village. You know, Mei began, everyone so far has chosen you to become the new 5th Mizukage. Zabooza and I have talked about it, and we certainly have no qualms with you taking over the position. You certainly have proven yourself over and over again, Mei-sama, Chojuro and Ao exclaimed at the same time in surprise. They had thought that she would become the next Mizukage, and here she is, offering the position to a leaf shinobi. Sasuke turned to Naruto with wide eyes. Sensei, he wanted to know what Naruto would choose. I appreciate the offer, I really do. Naruto spoke as he saw children playing on a playground, all laughing and smiling happily, but I have my own allegiances and people of my own. To return to one of you should become the Mizukage, and when I become the Hokage we can help bring peace to the shinobi nations. Mei had a faint smile on her lips. We knew you would say something like that. Very well, I'll take up the hat. She then smirked. Perhaps you can take it off of me as well as the rest of my clothes later. Naruto blushed and respectfully declined her offer, as he had done hundreds of times before. He then realized he loved the Mist Village just as much as he loved the Leaf, having spent an entire year among them and helping them fight for their right to live peacefully. It scared him a little as he walked with the group. He could easily start a new life and leave Konoha in the dust. He could get away from their judging stares. He wouldn't have to worry about the higher-ups looking down at him and his mental well-being, but he would not abandon the village. So many of his loved ones had died, for he couldn't, but he could still enjoy the company of Mist till he had to leave with Sasuke. Why not enjoy a little free time? Chapter 42. A promise. I will do whatever it takes, Naruto whispered as he planted a small kiss on Anko's forehead, who was sound asleep in his bed. He then left the room and walked by Sakura's room, a pang of pain running through his chest. Then as soon as it came, the mist faded from existence and Naruto was left wrapped in his chains with Anko's dead body laying right in front of him. I can't allow Anko to die the way you did. I can't let another person I love die. Sakura-chan. Tears burned in his eyes as he connected his forehead to the wooden door that led to Sakura's room. I won't be able to handle the pain anymore. These visions he had, the one he had of Sakura months before they transpired, were visions of the future. It was the only conclusion he could come up with, and now a mysterious mist steals his lover away from him, the one which he wants to spend the rest of his life with. No, he wouldn't let her die. He would prevent such pain from ever reaching his heart, even if it meant killing himself in the process. Naruto walked over to the kitchen and poured himself a small cup of water and hurriedly drank it, the cool liquid going down his throat and easing the nauseousness he felt ever since he had woken up at 1 in the morning. It now being 3, he filled the cup again and quickly down it once more. He suddenly covered his mouth and vomited into the kitchen sink. Cringing, he turned the water on again and began washing it out, and saw his hands covered in blood, and his eyes widened as his body began to tremble. What? He whispered as he watched the thick red liquid ooze off of his hands and onto the ground. As it began moving towards him, he quickly took a step back in shock as the blood began morphing, growing taller and more human-like. Stood before him as a strange man he had never seen before. We meet at last, the man said, his voice smooth yet hardened. I believe you know what you must do. Naruto unsealed the sword from his wrist and pointed it at the stranger. Who are you? The mysterious man had long brown hair that was cut short on the top, with 2 clumps of hair being tied together by bandages on either side framing his face. He had shiny black eyes with dark blue markings above them with short eyebrows. He was wearing a large white tunic that had several black tomos on them reminding Naruto on the Sharingan. I have gone by many names, some recognize me as the creator of ninjutsu, others as the father of the Uchiha clan, but you, my reincarnate, may call me Indra Otsutsuki, and I am at your service. Kurama, Naruto called out from inside his head, but he received no answer. He is sleeping, do not wake him. Indra's voice spoke without moving his lips. Inside of Naruto's head, Naruto stabbed the sword forward, but to his dismay it only passed straight through Indra. That won't work on me. I'm here to serve and guide you on what your next decisive action truly is. He spoke smoothly and without stuttering. I've been watching you for a very long time. I believe it's what you shinobi call the Chunin exams. When I awakened all that time ago, when you still had friends and a family. What do you know about anything? Naruto practically growled. Indra sighed and held up a single finger. Have you not been listening to me, Naruto? I've been with you for almost 12 years now, while my younger brother Ashura Otsutsuki slumbers deep within your mind. It's quite funny actually, brothers who have rivaled in their life fighting for days on end to suddenly end up in one body. We both reincarnated as you, Naruto Namikaze, something that has never happened to us before. What do you mean, reincarnated? Naruto questioned harshly. I am myself. And myself alone. Indra chuckled. You are not anymore, at least. Naruto's grip tightened around the handle of his sword. Explain, he ordered with gritted teeth. Indra gave him a mock bow. You once said you wanted to bring peace to the world by forcing the world leaders to the table. You wanted to become a god so you could have such a power to do so, and yet you stopped your conquest for power. You are definitely stronger than any of my previous reincarnates and even Ashura's, but yet you stopped just short of reaching godhood. You stopped because the people you said desperately wish to protect hold you back, but that's a strength to you, isn't it? Naruto nodded slowly and Indra snapped his finger. I thought so. I cut my ties with my father and brother, the only two people I've truly ever cared about, and sought a new type of power, a power that would make my brothers pale in comparison. And yet you failed to protect them, Indra said harshly, and Naruto took a step back in shock, as if he were just backhanded by the Otsutsuki. You failed to protect your mother and father, your pseudo-siblings, your teammates, and your grandfather figure, and now you lost your daughter when you could have prevented such a tragedy from ever occurring, and yet given the same warning as before, you hesitate to do what needs to be done. Shut up, Naruto protested weakly, his faults and shortcomings being brought back to life. You failed to save your daughter despite having a vision of her death, isn't that correct? Naruto's eyes widened as he felt the energy leave his legs as he fell to his knees in the kitchen, though they were suddenly not in the kitchen but in a plane of pure darkness with nothing but nothingness surrounding them. Indra cocked his head to the side, but inwardly he was smirking. I'm waiting for an answer. He spoke softly. Yes, Naruto whispered in the voice of a broken man, a man who has lost too much. Indra sighed in fake sadness. And now you've had a vision of the woman you wish to marry and have offspring with dying at the hands of Mist, a village. You've fought for a village you've bled for. They threaten your peace of mind by taking what you hold most dear right out of your hands, and they kill her. Will you allow that to happen? Naruto was silent, and Indra fought the urge to roll his eyes. It would be harder than that to sway the shinobi. You saw two large boulders crush Sakura, and then two shinobi from the hidden stone rape and then murder her in the middle of nowhere, miles upon miles away from any familiar place. Imagine how cold she must have been, how frightened she was in her last moments. She was probably whispering for help the entire time. He got no reaction. Indra walked behind Naruto and placed his hands on the man's shoulders and squeezed them and leaned towards his ears. they relished her cries for help as they were inside her. "Stop it!" Naruto roared as chakra oozed off of him like a pot overfilled with boiling water, the water tumbling over the edge and hitting the hot eye, turning into nothing but a hiss and then steam. "Will you allow the same fate to happen to Anko, your future wife?" Indra spoke softly. Naruto was shaking like a leaf during a hurricane, tears flowing from his eyes as they hit the emptiness that they stood on. "No," he whispered, gritting his teeth as the pain that tore through his heart like a knife lit up. "No, I won't let her die." Indra grinned from behind Naruto's back but quickly hid and circled around the blonde, his hand resting on the man's head, and took a deep breath. The hidden mist threatens your future wife and your peace of mind despite what you've done for them. They will take her away from you. You are the only one with the power to change your fate and hers as well. "I won't let her die," Naruto screamed as the sight of Anko lying dead before him appeared before his eyes. "I won't let her die. I promised I would keep her safe, and I promise I will." Indra closed his eyes, a triumphant feeling coursing through his chest. "You must do what must be done. Show no mercy, show no hesitation. You must wipe out the hidden mist, and once it is done you will have saved Anko and you will have stepped closer to your goal, peace." Indra lifted his hand from the blonde's head. "I believe in you, my descendant. I have no doubt that you will succeed. You are powerful in all of the ways of the shinobi. Now go and save your love as well as yourself." Naruto dipped his head, bowing slightly before Indra. "It shall be done." Naruto's eyes shifted from bright blue to crimson red, his Sharingan now active as he stood up. "Will I see you again?" Indra nodded. "When your task is completed, I shall reveal myself to you once again. Only then can I begin to teach you the true force of ninjutsu and set you on track for world peace. I will teach you the definition of power. And then you will call me Master." Naruto bowed again. "Thank you, my master." Indra was proud of himself as he watched Naruto walk away. The death of Sakura Namikaze was the tipping edge that he needed to materialize himself in front of the Namikaze, though for only a short time. He knew that timer was up when he began dissolving into a fine red mist. He chuckled to himself. Things were falling into place. Soon he would have his revenge. Naruto, dressed in a large black cloak with a hood covering most of his face, walked out of the village gates undetected, having ensnared the two guards into a dreamless sleep with genjutsu, his Sharingan glowing in the dark. He would need to speak with the fire daimyo. The fire daimyo hero Tasuki sat on his throne with a tired look in his eyes, feeling the age. He was 67. His day was just beginning, and yet he felt tired. He then heard the doors to his palace room open, and in strolled a lone figure in a black cloak with a pair of red Sharingan eyes. His eyes narrowed. His son had been killed by a lone figure with those Uchiha eyes. Perhaps they were here to finish him off. As if reading his thoughts, the figure spoke. "I have no qualms with you, Lord Tasuki. I only wish an audience so you may hear my plea." The ruler of Fire Country narrowed his eyes further. "You come uninvited, your eyes activated as if ready to attack, and wish for myself to hold an audience with you even if I entertained the thought of letting you speak any further. There are procedures to go through. You cannot just stroll into here without a second thought." He pointed to the cloaked figure. "Seize and arrest that man, Hiro Tasuki. I believe I was present when I saw your son Chu Tasuki die at the hands of a man in a mask who wields that same eyes as I do now. I was severely injured along with my sensei, and we failed our mission. I request an audience with you, and it will not be a request the next time I ask." Several soldiers surrounded the figure, who only lifted a hand. He snapped his finger and all of the soldiers dropped their weapons and bowed before him. "What is this?" Hiro shouted in a shocked voice. Why did his soldiers bow before a nobody? He swallowed the saliva in his mouth and chuckled nervously. Surely we can be civil. Would you like a cup of wine or perhaps water? The figure shook their head. No, I want your army, 10,000 men at my beck and call. In return I shall give you water country so you may expand your already large country. I refuse, the daimyo said as he dismissed the figure's demand without a second thought. The water daimyo and I are good friends. I could never betray him. Leave while you still can, stranger. Very well, the figure whispered before meeting the daimyo's gaze. Then I shall take them. Several hours later, the figure in the black robes took off his hood, revealing Naruto Namikaze as he gazed at his troops of 15,000, having decided to clean the daimyo out of his entire army. Your daimyo has ordered you to listen to me as if I were himself, and I expect all of you to listen to that order. Silence. Naruto smirked. Good, we march to the hidden mist. We will leave no survivors. Anyone who is seen to refuse to do so will be charged with treason and promptly executed. I will be fighting alongside you all, and I will do my best to do a lot of the work. He began going over the hidden mist's location, the infrastructure of the village, as well as the schedule the village seemed to follow to the dot. He would make sure this would go as smoothly as possible. He would save Anko. Naruto walked in front of the army of 15,000, all of them lined up and marching behind him, their hands laying firmly on the hilts of their swords, ready to draw them out at a moment's notice. They had their orders, listened to whatever the man leading them said. It was an important mission that was for sure. It was time. The streets of the hidden mist were settling down, the sun setting on the prospering village. Many shop owners were closing down their stalls and people were eating dinner inside their homes, resting from their day of work. Then came the pattern of a sound they had never heard before. It sounded as if someone were banging a shoe against a wooden pole repeatedly, but with more force and a bit farther away. What is that? A man wondered aloud as he did the dishes of his shop, not wanting to deal with them early the next morning. The entirety of Mist could hear that repetitive sound, and it was starting to unnerve them when it only got louder and closer. May stood up from her chair, Zabooza standing right across from her, as well as Aochojuro and Haku, who were preparing for a mission to Cloud to maybe negotiate a treaty. What is that? Haku asked Zabooza, who had a grim expression on his face. I don't know, but I know one thing. He nodded his head towards the direction the sound was coming from, and that sound is not a good one. Ow, May began urgently. Put the village on high alert. Take the children to the hideout. Every man and woman needs to help defend their home, shinobi or not. We need to prepare for an invasion. Yes, Mizukage-sama. Ao got out before dashing away to begin preparing. Could they be Yagura loyalist? Zabooza questioned, as May grit her teeth in frustration looking at the setting sun from the window. It's a possibility. Nevertheless, it doesn't change what we must prepare for. It seems Mist's conflicts are yet to be over. Naruto saw the gates of Mist ahead, the moon slowly coming out and shining its white light down upon the army. He turned to his military power. You have your orders. Leave no survivor. Civilians and shinobi alike must die. He was betraying his beliefs. Show no mercy. He was now doing what his younger self frowned upon so much. Trust in your daimyo and trust in me. But he had killed himself long ago. Naruto Namikaze as the world knew him was dead. He died the moment he subjected himself to Indra's teachings. He had killed Naruto Namikaze and now stood a nameless man whose only goal was to save his lover. The nameless man had wrapped his hands around the throat of Naruto Namikaze and choked the life out of him and gave birth to his new being. He would take Naruto Namikaze's name until he found his own, and he knew that stealing his name was the final erasure of the foolish boy who preached peace. A lone shinobi ran out to the army carrying a scroll. Who are you and what are you doing here? The shinobi asked, the fear in his voice evident. The figure who has stolen the name Naruto looked at the shinobi and suddenly flashed behind them the scroll in hand as he unrolled the scroll. The army watched as the shinobi fell to the ground, a thin slit across his throat, his eyes wide with shock as he laid dead. Naruto's eyes trailed along the scroll and felt lit aflame, the scroll falling to the ground unceremoniously to the ground as it burned to ashes, a pitiful attempt at peace. Charge forward, men, you know you must do. Naruto spoke in nothing above a whisper, and yet almost every single soldier heard him. They charged forward, taking their swords out of their sheaths, and flooded the village like water when a sizable crack appears on the concrete dam, rushing into homes, killing men, women and children. The soldiers spared no one as they ripped through mist, setting the houses on fire and watching as people rushed out of them covered in flames only to be struck down at the last second. Meanwhile, the figure known as Naruto walked around the village, knowing the men he had basically stolen from the fire daimyo would be too overwhelming for even an army of 1,000 Junin. These soldiers weren't common thugs but highly trained samurai that were tasked with defending the daimyo's home. They could use chakra, just not to the same extent that most shinobi could. If he were to gauge them correctly, then Naruto would guess that they were all high Chunin level. He knew what Mist's military force was, and they simply could not overpower 15,000 samurai. He walked over to a small mountain and saw where they had hidden most of the civilians, it being marked by the tiniest of seals, something he barely picked up even with his Sharingan. He studied the seal for a moment, studying every level the small seal contained, and quickly bit his thumb and began marking it. He watched as the stone that acted as the only entrance and exit in the hideout and stepped inside. Before closing it, he walked down a narrow tunnel, his footsteps echoing as he took off his hood, revealing his face. He saw a dim light and heard the whispers of children. He walked and saw the children all gathered, panic and terror on their faces before they saw Naruto, and they quickly cheered. I told you Izuku were fine. Naruto-sama is here. The kids began cheering his name, and Naruto met their happy gazes and unsealed the sword from his wrist, letting the tip of the blade touch the hardened dirt. He stood on. The children stopped cheering and gave him looks of confusion. Naruto-sama, a child who couldn't be older than 3 years old, said, tugging on his black robes and looking at him with shining green eyes. They reminded him of Sakura. He saw Sakura die. In his dreams Sakura was dead, but Anko would not die. That dream would stay a dream. His hand tightened on the hilt and he lifted it up. Anko would live. Then he brought the blade down. On your left, you old goat, Zabooza shouted as he slashed 5 samurais at once, protecting Ow. I thought you could see everything with that eye of yours. Ow, who was dispatching a samurai, rolled on the ground and sunk a kunai into a samurai's neck. I do not have 4 arms, unfortunately, and not all of us are wielding a sword that's taller than the average teenager. Ow shouted back. I swear your generation is filled with the most disrespectful little. Ow, Mei shouted as she melted a group of samurai. Shut up before I kill you. Ow jumped over a blade and side-stepped another before using a quick water jutsu. Of course, Mizukage-sama, but please consider retreating. There are too many of them. They knew that if they were to keep fighting that they would soon die. No shinobi other than some of the strongest that have ever lived could fight off these samurai, and Mei knew no one in her village held that power. If only Naruto-kun was here, he would be able to defeat these stupid sword-wielding douches, Mei thought as she quickly disarmed a samurai and slashed his throat with the sword she had taken from him. Zabooza-sama, Mei-sama, Haku and Chojuro shouted at the same time as they began fighting their way towards their most precious people. Zabooza saw his pseudo-son and smiled and began to fight all the harder. If he fell, then Haku would fall as well, and that was something he refused to allow. He had saved the boy when he was a child, and he would save the boy now. Mei heard her subordinate cry out her name and began fighting harder, knowing that some of the people in the village fought in her name, fought to keep their village safe from harm so they could live in relative peace. She would not fail them. She couldn't. Byakugan detected something and he felt the breath in his lungs leave as he fell to his knees, defeat filling up his entire body. It can't be. He breathed out as tears of despair fell from his eyes. May saw the man on his knees and began shouting, "Ow, get up right now and fight, we aren't dying here." Ow slowly turned his head to the Mizukage and met her green eyes. "May-sama," he whispered, "it's the children." He broke off as his throat tightened, no longer being able to speak. May's eyes widened at what Ao was about to say, and felt her own tears prickle her eyes. "They're dead." Ao finally finished. Zabooza heard Ao and looked at his fellow Junin with fury-filled eyes. "Who?" he roared. "Who did that?" Ao met Zabooza's eyes and was about to speak before his head slid off of his body, tumbling in the dirt as a figure dressed in black robes with a large hood covering his face stood over the now deceased man's body. "Me," he answered. "No," May cried out as she tried rushing the man, only to be stopped by Zabooza, who held her back, not caring the scratches that appeared on his arms and face as she clawed him, trying to free herself of his grasp, but his grip was like iron and he did not release her. "We need to be calm and work together to defeat him," he hissed in her ear. "He's obviously way different from these stupid samurai." The figure looked to his left and called out a random samurai's name. "Yes, sir," the samurai named Goto asked. "Inform the men to leave these four alone after everyone else is dead. Then you are to head back to the capital and your job will be complete." The samurai bowed and went off to inform his fellow samurai the orders of their leader. "Who are you?" May shouted, pointing her slender finger at him, all the while glaring murderously for killing one of her most trusted advisors as well as one of her very good friends. "I'm nobody but a spirit passing through this plane that has been forced to watch the deaths of many loved ones. I am nothing but at the same time I'm the embodiment of the hatred that has accumulated in such a twisted world." The figure took off their robes and threw them to the ground. May gasped and Zabooza felt his heart get torn to shreds as they looked at the face of their comrade, the very one who had defeated Yagura and freed the village. He now looked at with contempt. There was nothing but hatred in his Sharingan eyes, in contrast to the always cheerful ones that May and Zabooza had come to know. "But you may call me Naruto if you so wish, though that name has little meaning to me now." Zabooza lowered his blade and tore off the bandages he had wrapped around his mouth, revealing his sharp teeth. "Naruto, why are you doing this?" he shouted, anguish in his voice as he tried to wrap his brain around the events that had happened. "All you need to know is that I'm done playing shinobi in a world that is ruled by men and women who do nothing but drool and crave one thing: power." Zabooza suddenly rushed the blonde. "We fought together," he shouted as he swung his large blade at the man, only for Naruto to take a step back, avoiding it completely. "We bled together, we ate together." With each passing moment, Zabooza's strikes became more powerful and began to get faster and more wild, but his movements were too predictable. May turned to Chojuro and Haku, who had finally reached her, though Chojuro was restraining Haku the best he can. May was trembling from head to toe but still managed to give the two teenagers a small smile, her lips pressed together with so much force she thought that they would explode and merge together. "Chojuro, Haku, you both hold so much potential. You are the only hope for the hidden mist to live once again. Run as fast as you can and don't look back." Chojuro had tears running down his face. "May-sama," he whispered sadly as he grabbed Haku, "we need to go now." Haku refused. "No, I'm staying and helping Zabooza-sama. He's my reason for living. I won't abandon him." When he never abandoned me, I'll stay with him till the end. Mei's hand struck Haku's cheek, a small red handprint appearing on his cheek. Haku. She spoke as she grabbed his cheeks with her hands. You need to run. We're going to hold him off the best we can to buy you both time, so please run. She turned around and looked at Zabooza trying to fight Naruto, though the blonde was only interested in close dodges. Don't let our sacrifice be in vain. You are the next generation. Let's go, Chojuro repeated, but this time it was with more urgency. When Haku didn't respond, he grabbed the boy by the waist and hurled him over his shoulder and began running as fast as he could, dodging any samurai he came across. Zabooza-sama, Haku cried out, reaching his hand out as he watched his master and father figure fight the same man he fought with. We trusted you, Zabooza shouted as he trusted his blade forward, only to watch as it burst into metal shards. Naruto quickly flipped over the large man's body and connected a punch to Mei's chin, sending her back a few feet before ducking under what remained of Zabuza's sword. We'll take him together, Mei shouted. They both stood on either side of the leaf shinobi. Naruto, she began, dropping the kun at the end of his name. I don't know why you're doing this. I don't know if you're under a genjutsu or if this is under your own free will, but regardless of whatever answer you choose to give me, I will fight and defeat you. Naruto felt his lips curled up into a smirk, his Sharingan seemingly glowing as he met her eyes. I chose this, and there is no other path for me to take. There is no going back now. He jumped into the air as Zabuza's sword passed under him, the latter bleeding heavily from his right arm. I could have sworn I broke it into millions of pieces. Blood makes my sword come back, even if it's just the handle. Destroy it as many times as you like, I'll still come back swinging. Zabooza growled. Naruto chuckled. You only have a limited amount of blood you can lose before you pass out. Tell me, how many times do I have to shatter your blade to make you bleed out? Gritting his teeth, Zabooza dashed towards Naruto. The same time Mei did, but the blonde vanished from their sight, causing them to freeze. Hello there, Naruto spoke as he shoved a sword into Mei's left calf, causing the woman to scream out in pain. Stop this, Zabooza shouted. This isn't you. Naruto chuckled again. Oh, it's not me then. Who am I? Came a sick and sarcastic reply from Naruto as he caught Zabuza's sword in the air. I believe the time for talk has ceased, right? Naruto said before kicking Zabooza in the stomach, causing all of the wind in the man's lung to disappear instantly as he fell to his knees. Stop, Naruto, Mei shouted as Naruto's sword appeared in his hand once again. With this, I'm one step closer to my dream, he shouted as he brought the sword down, beheading Zabooza. Mei watched as her childhood friend's body fell to the ground, tears crawling down her already red cheeks and hitting the dirt they stood on. You are the final ninja I must worry about. Mei Terumi, don't worry, I won't torture you because I don't want anything more than your death. That will satisfy my needs. Mei glared at Naruto and he approached her. You've changed, she said in a broken tone. Where was the man who gave hope to everyone? He was around. Naruto Namikaze was weak. I destroyed him. Naruto spoke with so much hatred that it shocked Mei to her very being. Naruto was dead. Did this mean that this person was not Naruto but someone who had taken over Naruto's body? Who are you? She shouted. Why did you steal Naruto's body? Naruto laughed. This body was never taken. Naruto Namikaze was killed, but not of his body. He leaned down to meet Mei's angry gaze. Of his sole hope for a better future is what killed Naruto Namikaze. The death of his daughter sent him over the edge. Now he prevents the same from happening to the woman he loves most. The decision killed him, and now here I stand reaping the decision he had sown himself. So you are Naruto? Mei confirmed. She coughed a little before speaking again. I'm Sorry I couldn't save you from your own darkness that you hid so well, Naruto-kun, she whispered as she smiled at him. I truly did love you. Naruto thrust the sword into her heart. Blood began pooling out of her mouth as he slid the sword out of her body, her blood making the sword red. I know, May, he whispered before walking away, not caring to hear the future corpse hit the ground and bleed out. He had finished his goal. He had saved Anko. Chapter 43. Abyss. Tsunade sat her desk, her fingers laced with one another as she rested her forehead on them, a headache coming along as Anko, Sasuke, Sai and Kakashi stood across from her awaiting her orders. The hidden mist, our closest ally due to the help Naruto and Sasuke provided them during their civil war, has been burnt to the ground and all of its people murdered with no survivors. She whispered. Sasuke's eyes widened in shock at what she had just said. What? He asked her, not sure if he heard her correctly. I said that mist was destroyed not 2 days ago along with the rest of their people, well except for 2 who managed to escape the wrath of the man responsible. Anko rose an eyebrow. I can see why Sasuke is here, but why am I here? She questioned. I have a similar question, but I think I'll wait to get my answer, Kakashi added. Wait. Kakashi began. Where's Naruto? Tsunade grimaced. He wasn't home yesterday or the day before. Anko trailed off. Did he try to rescue Mist? Tsunade was frowning visibly as she removed her hands from her face and grabbed a small scroll that had a small seal on it. That's the Kazecage's official sealing. What does that have to do with Mist? Sai asked. The 2 survivors from Mist sought for refuge in the hidden sand, and they told the Kazekage everything, including the identity of the one who destroyed the village along with the fire daimyo's army of samurai. Wait a minute. Anko trailed off before she took a step back, a gasp escaping her throat as she put her hand over her mouth, tears bubbling up in her eyes. You're lying. No. Tsunade said somberly. Naruto Namikaze was the leader of that army that destroyed the hidden mist. Sasuke's hands tightened into fists. You're lying. There's no way he could have done that. There's no way, Sasuke shouted, refusing to believe his most precious person, his master, his older brother figure as well as his father figure, could do such a thing to people he loved. We need to leave, Sasuke. Naruto spoke as Sasuke sat up, rubbing the sleep out of his eyes as he yawned. Why isn't this a good spot for training? Naruto's small smile disappeared and was replaced by a slightly bitter one of having to do something he didn't want to do. If we stay in longer, I'm afraid I won't be able to go back to the leaf. Sasuke's eyes widened momentarily before speaking. What do you mean? I mean that if I stay here any longer, then there will only be further pain in the future. I love this village almost just as much as the leaf, and if I stay any longer I'll question where my true loyalties lie. The pressure is just a tad bit too much, Yano. I can't believe it. I won't, Sasuke growled as he stormed off, ignoring Tsunade's orders. He would find Naruto and get answers out of the blonde himself. Anko looked back at Sasuke and back at the Hokage and quickly bowed. I need to talk to him, and I need to find Naruto. I refused to believe he would do such a thing after going through so much with them. She quickly ran out of the Hokage's office, leaving Sai, Kakashi and Tsunade alone. You both believe me? Tsunade said, not questioning but rather stating. Sai nodded. My father changed since Sakura's death. He's been fighting some inner demons for the last week, and to snap suddenly isn't out of character for him. Though I've heard the stories about him and Mist, they wanted to make him Mizukage, so it is hard to believe, Sai said in a confused tone. Kakashi's hands curled into fists. It's only a matter of time before he starts targeting the other villages, big or small. He'll do anything as long as things go His way. I won't be surprised if he were to turn his back on the leaf if we were to pry too deep into these things. Tsunade let a tired sigh out and pinched the bridge of her nose. Anbu, she called out, and two of the captains immediately appeared in front of her. Take 5 squads and capture Naruto Namikaze, preferably alive, but if he isn't cooperative then you can use lethal jutsu, Yugo. One of the captains took off her mask and placed it down on the ground, shaking slightly. Was she turning down the Hokage? What would happen next? I apologize, Hokage-sama, she choked out, that I cannot bring myself to hurt Naruto Namikaze. Yugo, what are you doing? Kakashi practically hissed. Don't disobey orders. You once said that protecting your friends is one of the only things a person can do right in their lives, right, Kakashi-senpai? Kakashi faltered for a moment and Yugo continued speaking. I regretfully request to be assigned a different mission. I do not want to kill one of the people who helped me in my darkest hour. Yugo Uzuki was done. She lived a normal life, or rather as normal life as a shinobi who went into the Anbu Black Ops division ever since the invasion. Ever since those sand bastards had taken away her fiancé, she had been trying to find a reason to live, but each time she tried she failed. She was supposed to be Yugo Gekko, but that failed when Hayate was murdered in cold blood. How could she have let such a thing happen? She cursed as she dodged a bolt of lightning that came down from the sky, striking the tree she had been standing on in an attempt to catch her breath. Here, kitty kitty kitty. The missing Kumo ninja taunted, using a genjutsu to cloak his appearance and become basically invisible. Her squadmates had died to this high ranking a classed missing ninja. Kurogiri Muro Kurogiri grabbed Yugo by her neck out of nowhere and flung her down to the grassy bed of the forest, hitting the dirt with such force as she felt her bones strain and break under the sheer pressure and power the man had thrown her with. She was finally going to die behind her mask. Yugo closed her brown eyes and waited to die by whatever Kurogiri had planned, and waited and then waited some more. She opened her eyes to see Kurogiri pinned to the tree by 2 different glowing yellow chains that she recognized. En Namikaze, she got out. Before finding herself being lifted up, she looked at the person holding her and saw the warm smile of Naruto Namikaze. Don't worry, Kitty-chan, I'll protect you, he said a bit too cheerfully as he began running away and deactivating his chakra chains. No! Yugo shouted as she pushed herself out of his grasp, falling back to the dirt where she skidded a little, surprising Naruto, who went to pick her back up but stopped when she held a blade out, pointing it at him. Stay away from me, Kitty-chan, Naruto said, a concerned look in his eyes as he slowly moved his way over to her. Now is no time to be playing games. We need to get you to safety. Just let me die, Yugo shouted. She watched as Naruto visibly flinched at her words and felt bad immediately, but the anger and sadness took over her once again and she grinded her teeth together, tears falling down her cheeks from under the mask. You want to die too, huh? What? Yugo dropped her blade in pure shock at what the son of the 4th Hokage said in a sad tone. What did he mean by two? What? She said aloud. Naruto gave her a sad smile. Yugo-chan. He spoke gently and carefully as he said her real name and not her code name. I know how you feel. Anger swirled inside the woman once again and she glared at Naruto. You know nothing, she screamed, letting out all of her wayward emotions. You don't know what it's like to love someone so much and in a single night lose them all. As soon as the words left her mouth, she instantly regretted it, finally realizing who she was talking to. Naruto Namikaze, the man who had lost everything not once but twice. She began trying to apologize but was cut off as Naruto plucked her wooden mask, a grin on his face. Don't, he said with a chuckle. Just let it all Go, I'm not saying forget Hayate, he was a good man and a damn good shinobi, but if he saw you on this suicidal track, then what do you think he would think of it? Yugo looked at the blonde as she felt like she had just been slapped across the face. He would be disappointed. Naruto clucked his tongue. Ding ding ding, he would. You and I are similar in a way, ya know. I want to make those who I've lost proud of me. I want to become the person they would want me to be, and I'm sure Hayate wants you to become the person who you were meant to be, whether he was present or not. Yugo's hands covered her heart as she sank to her knees, her mask falling to the ground as tears streamed like rivers over her pale cheeks hitting the dirt. I just miss him so much, she choked out. She wasn't able to speak any further, afraid she would completely break down in front of the strongest shinobi in her village. Naruto knelt down and wrapped her in a hug. I know, he whispered in her ear. Let it all out. I won't tell anyone, I promise. Just. He felt her grip tighten around him as she returned the hug. Let it out. Then the first of many wails of hidden pain erupted from Yugo's throat as Naruto held her in his comforting arms. I refuse to attack or arrest Naruto Namikaze. I'm sorry, Hokage-sama. Tsunade gave Yugo a pitied look and looked down at her desk. I'll let it go this once. Tsunade spoke. You are free to disobey this order if any of you so wish, but it will be the only order of mine you will ever be allowed to refuse. If you refuse any orders after this one, you will be jailed and charged with treason. Yugo nodded and disappeared in a body flicker. Tsunade then turned to the remaining Anbu. Do what you need to do. If you must kill him, then make sure you don't damage his body too much. He holds too many secrets within that body of his. At once, Hokage-sama. He then disappeared. Tsunade then looked to Kakashi and Sai. Go find Anko and Sasuke. I have no doubt they'll find him first. Kakashi and Sai saluted and dashed off to find Naruto. Tsunade grabbed a bottle of sake from her desk and quickly took a gulp of the liquid, enjoying the burn her throat experienced as it traveled to her stomach. Bring it, she muttered under his breath. Naruto stood on top of his father's stone head, gazing upon the village he had sworn loyalty to when he was only 7 years old. He had succeeded in what he planned to do. He had saved Anko. He saved her. It had been an entire day since the destruction of Mist, and Naruto hadn't slept since he had made his decision. Beside him sat Indra. They're coming for you. The elder being spoke. Naruto's Sharingan eyes glanced towards the Hokage Tower, and surely enough, he saw several Anbu squads dashing towards him, quicker than expected. Naruto said as he stood up. But expected nonetheless. I guess you are going to retreat to the depths of my mind now. Indra nodded. Yes, it'll be fun watching you deal with such annoyances. With that, Indra dissolved into red mist. Dozens of Anbu flanked Naruto on all sides. Their swords were drawn ready to pierce the blonde at any given moment. Naruto Namikaze, you are hereby under arrest under the orders of the 5th Hokage. Surrender quietly. Naruto chuckled. I refuse, he said before disappearing in a flash of yellow, and the Anbu fell down to the ground simultaneously, blood pouring from their throats as Naruto stood over their bodies, speckles of blood dotting his face. He looked at the bodies of his old comrades, and a lone tear traveled down his face before turning his head towards the Hokage Tower. She had sent them to kill him. She was threatened by his power. She always was. His hands gripped into fists as he began walking towards his old training grounds. He wanted to remember who Naruto Namikaze was and remember why he fought. Peace Anko both know he didn't know he was aimless. His aimlessness led him to Training Ground 7, where the memorial stone laid with the names of his loved ones scribbled on the stone. Such a stone was a rotten thing to remind the people of death, to remind people of their failure to save those they loved, a failure such as himself. In a quick motion, Naruto launched a punch that shattered the memorial stone, the shards of rock falling to the ground unceremoniously. He would cleanse this world. Naruto, a familiar voice. He smiled and turned around and saw the sight of his love, Anko Mitarashi. Anko-chan, sorry I disappeared the other night. I had to do something very important. Anko walked over to Naruto and gripped his shirt and pressed her face into his chest. Please run away with me. Let's escape this village. Let's escape the sideways glances and the constant judgment. Let's go and live a happy life together while we still can, she pleaded as tears stained his shirt. Naruto gently grasped Anko by the shoulders and pulled himself away from her, a smile on his face, his eyes wide and bloodshot. We don't need to run, Anko-chan. I told you, didn't I? I'm one of the strongest people in the world. This world can't torture me any longer, and I will not allow this world to take you away from me as well. You aren't all-powerful, Naruto, Anko shouted. We can leave all of this behind. The village will be fine. We just need each other to survive, right? Naruto chuckled and pushed a strand of hair out of Anko's face, cupping her cheek. I'm not running. We're not running. I have the power to destroy any of our enemies, anyone who can and will become a threat. I can and have destroyed. Why do you think I destroyed the hidden mist and the hidden stone? They threatened our peace, our future, so I took them out of the picture. Anko, I will save you, he whispered. Anko pulled away from his touch, a horrified look on her face. Hokage-sama was right. You did destroy mist, didn't you? Love them. Shock was evident in her tone. I did what I did for you. They threatened us. They threatened my strength. I won't tolerate anyone threatening anything that's mine. Anko felt her cheeks become wet from more tears. You've changed. They were right. Kurenai was right. The entire time. You're not you anymore. Naruto scowled. I don't want to hear any more about this. The hidden mist betrayed me. Don't you betray me. His tone was slightly threatening. I don't know who I'm talking to right now, Anko spoke as she distanced herself from the blonde she had admired and loved for so long. Naruto, you're breaking my heart. You're going down a path I can't follow. Naruto's bright blue eyes shifted into his Sharingan, his gaze following above Anko's head. Because of those who warned you about me. Anger. No, Anko cried out. Because of what you've done. Because of what you plan to do. Naruto, I love you. Naruto saw Sasuke, Kakashi and Sai standing several meters behind Anko, their weapons drawn. Liar. He shouted. You're with them. You brought them here to kill me. His Sharingan eyes shifted into its Mangekyu stage, shining brightly as he used his ability to grab Anko by the throat and lift her up into the air, choking her. Naruto, please, she choked out as she grasped her throat. Let her go, Naruto, Sasuke shouted, his own Mangekyu activated as he began walking towards Naruto. Naruto glanced at Sasuke, his fist tightening slightly as Anko began choking more. Let her go, Sasuke said slower, ordering him to release Anko. Naruto relinquished the woman he loved and watched as she fell to the ground unconscious. He glared at the trio that had approached them. You turned her against me. He took off his cloak and let his fall to the ground, the wind blowing slightly. You have done that yourself, Kakashi shouted angrily, revealing his Sharingan. You will not take her from me, Naruto roared, his voice cracking with the uncontained amount of anger and rage coursing through his veins like blood. Your anger and lust for power have already done that, Kakashi replied. You've allowed this world to twist your mind until now. He paused. An image of a 7-year-old Naruto stood in place of the one that was 21, until now. You've become the very thing you've sworn to destroy. Don't lecture me, Kakashi, Naruto hissed. I've seen through the lies this world holds. There's nothing but hate, and I will cleanse this world of such hate and bring peace. Naruto unsealed his sword and waved it in the air before pointing it at Sasuke. I will bring peace, freedom, justice and security for my new world I will build. Your new world? Sasuke questioned, lightning gliding across his skin. You cannot force peace and then rule such a world. If you're not with me, then you're my enemy. Sasuke knew it at that time. He would have to kill Naruto to save the world. Sai, who had been quiet all this time, spoke. Father, is this the path you truly wish to follow? Naruto Namikaze was weak, Naruto said, repeating the same words he had said to those in mist. I destroyed him. Then I will avenge his death, Sasuke shouted. Revenge is not the path that is set for you, Naruto responded. I shape my own destiny, Sasuke replied. Before dashing towards Naruto at the same time Kakashi did, Naruto dodged a sword slash from Sasuke and ducked under a kunai swipe from Kakashi before delivering two harsh blows to the Hitachi's stomach, causing him to back up a little before he flipped backward into the air and behind Sasuke and tried stabbing the Uchiha in the back, but Sasuke connected his blade with Naruto's own, sparks flying as their Sharingans met. I will not lose to you, not anymore, Sasuke shouted as he tried pushing his blade forward, but to no avail as Naruto only increased the strength in his blade. You've grown stronger, Sasuke, Naruto commented before spinning and swiping Sasuke's feet from under him, but you are a bit too young to face someone like me. He used the sword in his hand and flipped it around in a reverse grip and tried to bring it down on Sasuke, only to be intercepted by Kakashi, who was glaring at him. Don't make me do this, Kakashi shouted as a Raikiri sparked in his hand. Don't make me kill the only family I have left. You're nothing but a useless nuisance, Kakashi, Naruto spoke harshly. Kakashi looked at the bright electricity covering his hand and put more chakra in it, increasing its power. Very well, little brother. He charged towards Naruto at blinding speeds, but the Namikaze wore a smirk proudly on his face as two chakra chains sprouted from his back and hit Kakashi to the side. Nuisance, Naruto murmured under his breath as he rushed Sasuke again, who was recovering from their last engagement. Swinging his sword down, Naruto met Sasuke's blade as chakra infused itself into both of their blades, with Sasuke's bursting into fire and Naruto's bursting lightning. You're still weak, Naruto whispered to Sasuke before a single sword protruded out of the Uchiha's stomach. Sasuke looked down and saw his blood covering Naruto's sword as the Naruto in front of him melted into mud. No! Sai shouted before furiously engaging Naruto in a kenjutsu battle. His strikes fast but heavy. Naruto was impressed for a little bit before his left eye began bleeding. Amanamanakanushi, Naruto shouted as blood gushed out of his eye, time slowing around him as he walked around Sai and quickly chopped the back of the teen's neck, knocking him out. He resumed time and wiped away the blood on his cheek, smearing it further. Then there was one, Naruto mocked as Kakashi stood up holding a broken shoulder with his right hand. I can't let you go down this path of self-destruction, Naruto, Kakashi yelled as he took a step towards the man he looked to like a little brother. I can't bear to lose someone else. Naruto laughed a little. The only person losing something is you, and in the form of your life. Chains erupted from the earth behind Kakashi and pierced him in the chest and in the stomach. Naruto then used his right eye's ability and pulled Kakashi over to him, grabbing him by the neck and holding him in the air. You are weak, Naruto said, before closing his fist, completely crushing the Hitachi's throat as he fell to the ground. You bastard, Sasuke shouted as black flames came from his eye. I won't let you get away with that. Naruto dodged the flames and kicked Sasuke in the chin in a flash. Don't make me destroy you, Naruto warned. Suddenly Sasuke felt cold as he met the Mangekyo eyes of his master and was frozen. Still fear taking a hold of his body, this cold chilled Sasuke to his very core. It wasn't natural to feel like this. He had felt Naruto's killing intent before, but never to this level. What had changed about his master? What could have happened to change him so drastically? Sasuke's eyes widened and he broke through Naruto's killing intent effect and yelled, "Naruto, Sakura wouldn't have wanted this." Naruto's eyes widened as rage filled them and he immediately descended upon the Uchiha. "This isn't about Sakura," he roared and punched Sasuke straight in the face, launching the raven-haired teen into the ground. Cracks forming in the dirt. Naruto grabbed the bloodied Sasuke by the collar of his shirt and lifted him up. "Shall I take your life like the rest of the Anbu?" Naruto whispered as he pointed his sword down at Sasuke, his eye mere inches from the point of the blade. "Do you wish to perish as well, Sasuke Uchiha?" No, he couldn't die. He still needed to help defeat the masked man that had helped kill his clan with Itachi. Why? What would cause Naruto to destroy the mist and attack his friends? Sasuke began, his voice shaking, but was interrupted when Tsunade and several more Junin entered the training grounds, weapons drawn. His eyes drew over to Tsunade and his body relaxed as he fell into the state of unconsciousness. "Naruto Namikaze, you are under arrest for treason against Konoha and the murder of several Anbu," Tsunade barked with absolute authority. "Naruto." Kurenai whispered in awe at the sight of 4 unconscious people that she had thought Naruto considered closest to him. "What have you done?" Asuma muttered, flicking his cigarette to the side. "Naruto sensei." "Why?" Neji whispered in a low tone. "Most unyouthful," Guy said with angry eyes filled with tears at the state Kakashi was in, all of those judgmental stares, and yet you're all blind. Naruto muttered as he let go of Sasuke's shirt. "But my eyes see you all clearly for what you truly are, hypocrites. Will you surrender quietly?" Tsunade whispered as she knelt by Kakashi, her hands glowing a light green, trying to heal the Hitaki before he died. "You ask me that after I kill several Anbu?" crippled Kakashi, who may never speak again. "Knock out my son's student and girlfriend. You're more delusional than I thought. Perhaps that old age is finally catching up. Hiruzen sensei would be horrified by your actions." Tsunade snarled. "What about your mother, your father? How dare you disrespect their memory by acting such a way?" "I'm not acting," Naruto laughed, holding his sides a little. "This is me. I'm tired of acting like such a good little boy my father wanted me to be. I've never been able to choose who I wanted to be. My path was always set for me. Now I'm taking my own destiny in my own hands, and I'm done trying to please everyone." "How dare you!" Kurenai shouted. "This is your path, hurting those who you loved and people who love you. What type of logic is that?" Naruto shook his head as if dismissing her entire speech. "I don't care what a mediocre Junin has to say to me. I'm above you all in every fathomable way. You're all weak." He tilted his head to the side, a grin spreading across his face. "You all always look down at me from afar, jealous of my power. I'm sick of it, Naruto," Kurenai shouted as she ran up to him and grabbed him by the collar of his shirt, his slightly sadistic smirk not disappearing as he narrowed his eyes slightly, amusement reflecting off his Sharingan. "Let us help you. We're your friends. No one has looked down at you. You need help and we can't help you unless you let us." Naruto grabbed her hands and shoved her off of him. "Lies," he whispered bitterly. "I saw the way you looked at me when I killed Orochimaru, the way you all looked at me, the way you looked at me when we sparred, the way you all treat me like royalty. Just to talk about me behind my back. I saw everything. Please don't do this, Naruto," Kurenai whispered as tears erupted from her eyes, her makeup getting slightly distorted. "We care about you. I care about you." Naruto's Sharingan disappeared from their vision, revealing bright blue eyes. He began before taking a step back, gripping the roots of his hair as he pulled on it slightly. No, I won't let you fill my head with more lies, more deceit, more falseness. I won't accept sugar-coated poison, he shouted, activating his Sharingan once more as he glared at them. I won't accept any of that. Then why are you crying? Asuma asked in a hushed voice, his volume barely reaching Naruto's ears, but the effect was instantaneous. Naruto raised a shaky hand and felt the wetness of his tears that had crawled down his cheeks. Show no hesitation, show no mercy. Those words echoed inside Naruto's brain a million times in the span of 3 seconds as he stood there shocked at the unconscious tears that had trailed down his face. He paused for a moment. These were his friends. These people were his family. They were people he loved, he cherished, who he wished to protect. Why was he doing this for Anko? Why? The question echoed inside his brain. Why? Obito, Rin, Dad, Mom, Shisui, Izumi, Itachi, Fugaku, Makoto, Sakura, Naruto, Namikaze. Naruto whispered they were his friends, his family, and they were dead, gone, forever lost. Why? Please, Naruto, Kurenai pleaded as she inched closer to him. Come back to us, we love you. Love. They loved him. He looked down towards Anko, her unconscious body laying on the ground just a few feet away from him. They loved him. No, they couldn't. Not after what he's done, what he's become. They couldn't. They were lying again, lying to his face. Again. Liar, he shouted, chakra bursting out of his body as the wind began picking up around them. He had no future. He knew that they knew that if he gave up now he would certainly die. You're lying to me. Again. No, Naruto used his Mangekyu and lifted Kurenai in the air, choking her like he had done to Anko and Kakashi previously. This reality is broken and twisted by shinobi. Naruto spoke absolute hatred in his tone. I will fix this broken world and mend the shattered glass back together. Release her, Naruto, Guy shouted as he rushed the man he called friend. Naruto is dead, he screamed as he threw Kurenai into Guy. Naruto Namikaze is dead, swallowed up by this world of hell. He was about to attack, but he felt a familiar chakra, no, 2 familiar chakras descending upon him. I will avenge Zabooza-sama, Mei-sama. Haku and Chojuro screamed as they tried to slash at Naruto, though he easily dodged them. Haku looked worse for wear and Chojuro had seen better days. No, you really won't, Naruto said as he began to release a jutsu, only to freeze as Haku stood over Anko's body, needles of ice in hand as he pointed them towards her throat. Don't you fucking dare, Naruto roared. But stayed where he was. He was probably the fastest man alive with the Kurama cloak on, but even he couldn't save Anko in time if Haku were to plunge the needles down. You took Zabooza-sama from me. Haku got out, his eyes bloodshot and filled with hatred. You took my reason to live and now I will take yours. Don't, Kurenai shouted as she watched Haku insert the needles into Anko's neck, killing her almost instantly. What have you done? Tsunade shouted as she turned to Naruto, his eyes wide with horror. I avenge my master, my father, my— Haku began, only to suddenly stop as his head fell off of his body. Asuma standing over him with a trench knife enhanced with wind chakra, his face wet with flowing tears. No, Kurenai shouted as she crawled over to Anko's body. Tsunade-sama, do something, she cried out. Tsunade didn't waste any time rushing over to Anko and doing a quick vital check. After a moment she closed her eyes as the green chakra disappeared. She's dead, she confirmed. Dead. No. Naruto's body moved on its own as he walked over to Anko's body. As he collapsed to his knees, he was right. Everyone he loves eventually dies. Death was natural. He gently grabbed her body and held her in his arms, tears sliding silently down his face and onto Anko's face. He had failed his one promise to her. He wanted to create a better world for her and him, to raise their children when they had them, to marry her, to laugh and cry with her, and now she was dead, gone, just like everyone else. He wanted to kiss her, tell her he loved her, and now the last thing he did was choke her and knock her unconscious. He was horrible, he was horrible, he was horrible. Anko-chan, Naruto whispered, pushing a strand of hair out of her face and tucking it behind her ear. I can't live without you, please wake up, please wake up, please let this all be a dream, please let this all be a dream, I love you so much. Please don't leave me, please don't leave me. We were supposed to move into my parents' house soon. I was going to propose to you sooner or later, because Sasuke told me that sooner is better than later. We were going to raise some beautiful kids, and I was going to help bring the world peace with you as my wife, my support, and now you're gone, stolen from me. His body shook as despair swallowed him whole. Why did you leave me? He choked out as he clutched her body closer to his. He gently laid her down and stood up and turned around. Where are you going? Kurenai asked, gently, choking down her sobs. To die. Naruto replied. He untied his headband and let it fall to the ground. I can't continue on without her. My light is gone. I can't see without my light. He began walking. I didn't know he would. Chojuro began speaking but was cut short as Naruto instantly activated his Mangekyo and pushed his right arm to the side. Roughly, Chojuro burst into nothing but blood and bones as the trees hundreds of meters in the direction Naruto pushed were instantly flattened, turned to mulch stumps and shredded leaves. Just shut up, Naruto whispered, blood flowing out of his eye. He continued walking towards the exit of the village. The cries of Kurenai didn't reach his ears. Focused on one thing, he would truly die and join everyone in the afterlife. Naruto stood on top of a large cliff and closed his eyes. He would dive headfirst into the spikes of stone hundreds of meters below. The impact would certainly end his life, something that not even Kurama could heal. He would die as he took a step forward. A hand shot forward and grabbed him roughly by the shoulder and pulled him back, causing him to fall to the dirt. What the? Naruto began. Before his breath hitched, in front of him stood the masked man he had saw all those years ago, the same masked man who had helped Itachi kill his clan, the same masked man that had killed the fire daimyo's son and injured Shisui and himself severely all those years ago. Naruto Namikaze, the masked man, said, their Sharingan glowing through the tiny hole of his orange swirled mask. We need to have a little chat. Chapter 44 Revival. Naruto Namikaze, the masked man, said, their Sharingan glowing through the tiny hole of his orange swirled mask. We need to have a little chat. Naruto drew his sword, pointing it at the masked man that stood in front of him, the same man who had taken so many from him before. I have nothing to speak of with you. You killed Izumi, he growled. Itachi would have done so himself. Have I not heard out his plea for help? Naruto's eyes widened, making the masked man raise an eyebrow. Oh, he didn't tell you very well. I shall explain it myself. You see, Itachi sought me out when he was given the task of killing the Uchiha by the elders of the Hidden Leaf. In order to stop a coup from erupting, he wanted me to kill those he could not, including Izumi Uchiha. Don't lie to me, Naruto whispered. Itachi would have spared Izumi. You killed her out of spite, just as you did to the daimyo's son. You hurt my sensei and myself. You're nothing but a monster. The masked man shook his head. Your ignorance clouds your judgment, but do not worry, I will cleanse your mind and make you realize the reality of this world. Naruto swiped at the man with the sword in his hand in anger. Don't you dare tell me about the reality of this world, he shouted as his blade passed right through the man. To his dismay, I know the cruelty this world produces, what it turns people into, what it takes away. This reality is broken. And I no longer have any desire to fix it. Then you understand, the masked man said quietly. What? If I told you there was a way you could see everyone you've ever lost to touch, smell and see them? Once more, Naruto faltered, looking at the ground for a moment as his Sharingan deactivated his dull blue eyes revealing themselves. Why should I believe a word you say? Naruto whispered, but the doubt and longing in his voice was evident. He wanted it all back, because you are the only person in this cruel reality that I could not strike down, that I could not bear to witness to death. Ever since you were a boy I've watched you from the shadows, protecting you from death. Let's get him while he's training, an Iwa shinobi said as he led a squad of 10 Junin-level shinobi to the outside of the training grounds. Naruto Namikaze was currently training in, exhausted from having worked all day. We'll make him pay for his father's mistakes, another growled. To even fathom the idea of laying a hand on my little brother is fatal. A dark, sinister voice spoke. The Iwa shinobi looked up and saw a single man dressed in a black cloak with red clouds scattered across it, with an orange mask that had swirls around it that led to a single red Sharingan that blazed with fury. Now you will die. No one heard the screams of the men as they were torn apart by the masked ninja, nor did Naruto even hear a peep. Despite being so close to the combat, Obito stood over the bodies of the now dead Iwa shinobi. Zetsu, clean up this mess. You are the only person in this world that is worth saving, little brother, Obito said as he took off his mask, revealing his distorted face. And I want to bring peace to this cruel world and throw away this reality for a new one, a better one. Obito, Naruto whispered. But you died. I did. You and I are the same Naruto. We both wish to bring peace to this messed up world. Join me and we can make it into a reality. Naruto took a step back. How can you be alive? I thought you died. Kakashi told me you died. He cried out in disbelief, seeing one of his precious people back from his past suddenly back. I survived, little brother. But as I watched Rin die with my own eyes, I knew this world was nothing but suffering. I knew this world was counterfeit because Rin couldn't die. This world is but an illusion, and I seek to create a new world, a world where Rin is alive. You can experience that world too. This world is a perfect reality. There is no hardship, no more struggles, no more pain, only peace and prosperity. Naruto looked at Obito weirdly before a small humorless smile appeared on his face, his Sharingan coming to life. Tell me more about this world. Kakashi was having a horrible day. First off, he was in the hospital because the man who claimed to have killed his younger brother almost killed him too. He looked out of the window, his one visible eyes filled with sadness. How could Naruto do this? Had Sakura's death really driven his younger brother to throw away everything and become insane? His hands turned into fists as he suddenly felt angry. How could he have been so blind? Naruto had displayed signs of losing it for a long time, but just like everyone else he had ignored it and waved it off, saying that Naruto was loyal to the village and that he had more restraint than that. He should have insisted that Naruto live with him after Minato and Kushina died. Perhaps then things would be different. A sigh escaped his throat as well as a wince in pain. Then a swirl appeared in his room. Before, a man with an orange mask with one eye hole and a black cloak littered with red clouds was suddenly at the end of his bed. Unable to speak, Kakashi felt fear creep into his heart as he met a single Sharingan eye glowing from the eye-hole of the mask. Greetings, Kakashi Hatake. I'll be taking your Sharingan if you don't mind. Obito spoke before moving Kakashi's headband and digging into his skull and removing his old eye from his old teammate's eye socket, ignoring the pained grunt. Kakashi gave out, believe it or not, this will bring peace to the world. I thank you for your contribution, Kakashi. With that, the figure disappeared in a swirl. You've acquired the 9 tails. Nagato asked through Yahiko's corpse as he looked at Obito, whose mask was on. Obito nodded. We must begin the sealing technique immediately, then I will bring his body over to you and you will use Rinne rebirth on him and bring him back to life. Nagato rose an eyebrow. That will severely strain my body and I will be unable to move within the Akatsuki for several days, maybe weeks. Obito waved off Nagato's concerns. After he is revived, I will take care of him for a few days till he is back to perfect health and then he will become a part of the Akatsuki. Nagato's eyes widened. You mean he's giving himself up willingly? Obito nodded. Then he'll be a powerful asset, that he will then we will capture the 8 tails and begin the process and bring peace to this world. Nagato nodded. Very well, let's begin the process. Think about what you're doing. Kurama roared at Naruto, who was standing in front of the beast inside his mindscape. You can't give me over to those bastards. There's nothing but more pain and suffering on the trail ahead. You can't listen to that man whose promises are nothing but honey-filled lies. Kurama, Naruto spoke softly, his Sharingan eyes spinning as he met the beast's eyes. I can't live in this cruel world any longer. I apologize, my friend. Kurama's eyes widened as his vermilion red eyes shifted into a crimson red Sharingan. Having been ensnared in a genjutsu by Naruto, with this I cut the last of my ties to this counterfeit world. Naruto spoke as he turned around, not seeing nor hearing Indra laughing in the background madly. The members of the Akatsuki all stood in a circle around Naruto, who was lying in front of the Gedo statue. Now we will begin sealing the 9-tailed fox, Nagato announced to all of the members, with only Sasori being missing, who died fighting against Sakura Namikaze and Granny Chiyo from the Sand Village. As the sealing began, Obito looked at Naruto with worry-filled eyes. Nagato had best use Rinne rebirth on his little brother. Or else. Obito held Naruto's now deceased body in his hands, arriving at Nagato's hideout where Konan was outside waiting for him. You may leave now, he spoke, the deep voice of his Madara persona only echoing due to his mask. Nagato will be safe with me. The amber-eyed woman's emotionless gaze only narrowed slightly. I hope so for your sake. Obito chuckled. I only wish you could trust me as much as you trust Nagato. Have I ever led you down a path of wrongness or hardship? He asked rhetorically as he walked into the dark room where Nagato sat with several chakra rods that had pierced his back long ago still standing, his hands and lower body in some sort of machine laying Naruto's body down. Obito looked up at Nagato. You may begin whenever you please. Nagato's Rinnegan eyes looked down at the man's body before him, before looking back up at Obito. How do I know he will become as valuable as you say? Surely taking the 9 tails from his body would weaken his power considerably. Obito almost scoffed. I can confirm that he was able to beat the 9 tails in one-on-one combat as well as the 1 tails. He also destroyed the hidden stone and the hidden mist. Without the fox's help, he obliterated Orochimaru in mere seconds with only the use of his Sharingan. In fact, his power far surpasses your own. Is that so? Nagato whispered to himself. Very well. Clasping his hands together, Nagato's hair turned starch white as a large statue with a frightening face erupted from the ground, its mouth widening to inhuman levels as a single white smoke-like object left its mouth and into Naruto's body before it went back into the ground. So that was the King of Hell. How interesting, Obito commented as Naruto immediately began coughing. Nagato released his hands and slumped back, sweat dripping down the sides of his head as he breathed harder than he was before. Empty of Kurama. It seems we must depart, Nagato, Obito said as Naruto began regaining consciousness. I thank you for your service. It will not go Unrewarded, that I can assure you. With that, Naruto and Obito disappeared in a swirl with the latter. Using Kamui insert Star Wars Order 66 sad music mix, Anakin's betrayal and I'm so sorry. Naruto opened his eyes and found himself in a small cave. He slowly sat up, ignoring the pain his muscles felt. He looked to the left and saw Obito sitting in a small chair. He's gone, he stated. It is. Obito confirmed. The 9 tails is now sealed within the Geto statue, meaning we only need the 8 tails to be able to complete our dream and see those we love once more. After a moment of silence, Obito asked a single question. Are you strong enough? Naruto stood up, his legs shaking as he gave everything he had just to move. He was supposed to be dead. He had died. He had gone through a tremendous amount of stress and had died and was almost immediately brought back to life, but he had to survive. He had to live to see Anko and Sakura again, to see everyone again. He would endure this pain. He would die 1,000 times and undergo pain far worse than this just to see her smiling face again. Yes. Obito stood up, discarding his mask to the side as a white Zetsu appeared by his side. Very well. Obito moved the chair he was sitting in. Lay back down. Naruto did as he was told. Before Zetsu brought out several tubes, needles and several other pieces of medical equipment that Naruto didn't know the name of. As Zetsu connected the tubes with needles and inserted several of them throughout Naruto's body, he did the same with Obito's body. Zetsu then began explaining what was going on. You and Obito are not directly related despite being emotionally brothers, therefore we must transfer some of his blood into yours and some of your blood into his. That way you will both be able to transplant your own Sharingan within each other by now being blood brothers, thereby sharing the same DNA. I didn't know it worked that way, Naruto commented. It probably doesn't, Obito replied as he closed his eyes. But Zetsu will be doing surgery on both of us to ensure that we are able to handle each other's blood. I will be sharing some of Hashirama Senju's DNA with the both of you, Zetsu commented, as well some DNA of my own within you. Naruto. Obito rose an eyebrow. I already have Hashirama's DNA within my own. Zetsu shook his head. Madara-sama mostly gave you a part of another Zetsu, that way you weren't able to control wood style to the same degree Hashirama nor Madara-sama could. I was saving this for whenever you decided to steal Nagato's Rinnegan as Madara-sama instructed, but I believe inserting it into the both of you would be the wisest decision. As of now, very well. Naruto spoke. Don't bother letting me wake up either, just transplant our eyes as soon as this is done. Zetsu nodded. All right, the anesthesia will be coming into effect at any moment. Naruto closed his eyes, deactivating his Sharingan. He was numb. He would save this world. He would save himself. Then he embraced the darkness. We have a new member, Pain announced in a large dark gray room, sitting at the farthest end of the rectangular table with the rest of the Akatsuki sitting on either side of it, with Konan sitting at the opposite side of the table. Let us welcome him into the Akatsuki. Obito, now disguised under his Tobi persona, was sitting next to Deidara, patiently surprising the Mad Bomber immensely, as well as the other members in the room. Allow me to introduce you to Naruto Namikaze. The doors opened, revealing a dim light as the sound of heavy rain filled the room. Naruto stepped into the room wearing a dark gray long-sleeved shirt with black cargo pants and a pair of black combat boots with a loose black cloak covered in red clouds that reached down to his knees, with a hood covering his now midnight black hair and making the glow of his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan shine even brighter than usual on his hands. He wore fingerless black gloves that seemed to hover ever so slightly to his pockets, as if ready to draw a weapon at any moment. This man was no longer Naruto Namikaze. Naruto Namikaze was dead, replaced by an agent of the Akatsuki, replaced by a now triple S ranked criminal, the destroyer of two hidden villages. Naruto Namikaze, the kind and gentle boy who deplored killing, who always smiled, faded into the background, his airflow being restricted as this man strangled him to death. Naruto Namikaze was dead, replaced by none other than the reincarnation of hatred, the embodiment of hate. He was hate. He was death. Chapter 45. The Akatsuki, a new member again. First we get this dumbass, Deidara barked out, gesturing towards Obito, who only giggled in his Toby persona. And now we get Mr. Moodsalot, who's next. A scavenger. Hold your tongue, Deidara, Nagato hissed through Yahiko's body. I expect you all to welcome our newest member with zero hostilities. Naruto Namikaze, Kakuzu muttered, his arms crossed over one another. You have quite the bounty on your head from Konoha. I wonder if you're as strong as the bingo book says, Kisame said with a small glint in his eye. Naruto looked up and saw the crossed-out mist insignia on the shark-like man's forehead. I haven't opened one of those in a while, but I guess destroying 2 of the 5 major great shinobi villages will put a dent in the process of updating one. Naruto said in a monotone voice. You destroyed Stone and Mist, Kakuzu said in surprise. That was you? Naruto nodded. Yes, they were both ashes that I walked upon. Deidara stood up, slamming his hands on the concrete table, and pointed a finger at Naruto, glaring. Bullshit, there's no way a single shinobi could destroy the hidden stone there too. He stopped speaking as his hand suddenly went to his throat, his eyes bulging slightly. I didn't come here to lie and flaunt off my skills, though if you want the latter you'll have to fight me for such privileged information. He then released Deidara, who immediately began gasping for air. Then again, I doubt any of you could give me a proper fight. Naruto, Pain said, his eyes slightly narrowed. Would you perhaps explain some of your strengths and weaknesses, that way we can assess you properly and get you a partner. He then slid a ring down the table. And you will also need this. Naruto placed the ring on his left thumb. How charming, he said to himself. I guess I'm an all-around fighter. One, have many strengths and 0 weaknesses. I can go long or short range, though I prefer short, because it's easier to hack my opponents in several pieces. I've mastered every single jutsu the Hidden Leaf and the Hidden Mist could offer, including the forbidden jutsu that only their respective cage could look at. No weaknesses. Wowie, Toby exclaimed, earning a punch from Deidara. Conan was frowning. No weaknesses? Are you sure you aren't being arrogant? She asked. Naruto scoffed. Arrogance is not one of my traits. I'm possibly one of the strongest, if not the strongest shinobi alive at this very moment. There's a reason why I'm alive at this very moment and not dead in the ditch after you all extracted the 9 tails from my body and left me a corpse. After a moment of silence, Naruto took off his hood. Please attack me. I won't attack back. You have my permission. Taking him up on his offer, Conan sent several paper shuriken towards the black-haired man, only to watch as they passed through him as if he weren't even there. Genjutsu? She asked. Hardly, he said, plucking the table and proving that he was still there. I'm quite real, Conan. Impressive, Kakuzu commented. What jutsu is that? It's nothing you should worry over. It's not learnable, only obtainable, Naruto said. So he's already got Kamui down. When did he have time for that? Oh well, my little brother was always a quick learner. I just wish I could use his telekinetic ability as well as he can, Obito thought as he watched Naruto with a smirk on his face. Well then, how would one obtain such a jutsu? Kakuzu pressed further. He had lived longer than any of these fools who sat at the table and had never seen a jutsu that someone could just phase right through. First have the Sharingan, Naruto spoke his expression darkening. Then kill the one who you hold closest to your heart. I pierced my best friend's heart and gained these eyes. The room was silent enough to hear a pin drop. Whoa. Kisame said, a smirk on his lips. I like your style, kid. Brutal as a shark. Naruto didn't even bother to give the shark-like man a second look. That's disgusting, Conan said in a distasteful tone. To do such a thing in the name of power is nothing short of monstrous. Why stop there? Naruto asked. Call me a demon, a devil, I don't care what any of you think of me. Don't act as if you know me, Conan. As long as none of you don't affect my work, then we won't have an issue. Toby began giggling. Scary, I want to see more, yet I don't want to get booped on the head by Deidara senpai. Deidara then hit Toby over the head, getting a small whine from the childish acting man. Don't say things like that in front of the entire group. You're supposed to be a professional. Toby remained silent, but rubbed the spot where Deidara had hit him. In fact, he met Nagato's gaze. Why am I even sitting here to introduce myself? Last I checked, this is an organization filled with S-ranked criminals, not a fresh genin team. I could have had the 8 tails in my clutches by the time it took me to get here. And these pathetic talks, are you sure I can't sacrifice him to Jashin? Hidan asked, nudging Kakuzu slightly. If you believe you can do it, then by all means go do so. Naruto immediately stood up and left the room without a word. He's a bit of a dick, Deidara muttered. Naruto looked up at the sky above, the gray clouds covering every inch of what was supposed to be a blue color, now replaced by darkness and the depressing rain. He put his hood back up and walked through the village, hidden in the rain, barely seeing anyone as he passed by. As he exited the village, several papers began materializing in front of him, revealing Conan as she looked up him with narrowed eyes. Oh, greeted personally by the 3rd highest ranking official within the Akatsuki. I'd be honored if you were the 2nd or higher. So you know about Madara, she said carefully, trying to gauge his reaction. She was disappointed as nothing but knowing eyes stared right back at her. Why did he choose you to bring back to life? He had Nagato on the verge of death countless time within the last few weeks. I guess I'm the queen to Nagato's knight. Naruto spoke. It was a calculated risk, though. I suppose he sought me out because I was the last of his kin. It helps that I'm pretty powerful. Your arrogance blinds you, she hissed. Is it arrogance if it's true? He asked rhetorically. I don't see why you're complaining. I'm fulfilling the goal you and Nagato have envisioned for a long time. Madara's vision, she corrected. He only convinced Nagato to follow suit and make this world know pain to bring peace. Do you know pain? Naruto questioned her, catching her off guard. Do you know true despair? I'm not going to answer that question, she said defensively. You have no right to. No, that's fair, Naruto said as he walked past Conan, not giving her a second glance. I'll be capturing the 8 tails now. I suppose I'll see you at the sealing process. The sound of his footsteps hitting mud echoed in Conan's ears. Wait, she spoke, turning around. He halted, turning back around to face her, asking her silently what she wanted. Why did you join us? What are your goals within the Akatsuki? Naruto thought about it for a moment. That's a rather long answer. I have time, but I have no patience for waiting. You want to know why I joined the Akatsuki, yet you don't reveal to me if you've experienced true pain and despair. You want information from me, but you aren't willing to give some to me as well. Hypocritical if you think about it. Conan, who was now glaring freely at the man who called himself Naruto, sent several paper bombs by his feet. Tell me now. Naruto took off his hood, allowing the rain to fall onto his raven-colored hair. Or else I'll take care of you right now. If you aren't willing to share your motives, then you are an unknown, and unknowns are dangerous and threaten our organization. I could kill you within a blink of an eye. Naruto admitted freely, causing Conan's eyes to widen in surprise. I could hide your body and Nagato wouldn't be any of the wiser. I could erase your memories and send you to a different village with different ideals. I could make you forget all of your troubles, or I could make you go back to your room and kill yourself. Though I doubt Madara would be very pleased if I were to kill one of the prized members of the Akatsuki. Conan was about to reply but found that her throat was beginning to become constricted, as if an invisible hand had wrapped around her neck and was slowly squeezing it. She felt her feet begin to lift up and hover over the ground, her hands going to her neck as if to try and decrease the amount of pressure that it was currently feeling. Naruto's hand was outstretched, halfway closed into a fist. You could put all of the paper bombs in this world all over my body and inside my stomach and blow them up, and I will not die. You have no power over me. He released her, watching as she fell to her knees, massaging her throat as she coughed a little, breathing heavily to get oxygen back into her lungs. You're not invincible, she choked out. Naruto shook his head. You're correct. He walked over to her and bent down on one knee, meeting her angry gaze. But I cannot die. I won't allow it. Not until I've accomplished my goals. Not until I'm satisfied. I can't die. Because I simply hold too much resentment for this world to bend to its will. What are you saying? Conan exclaimed. You shut up. Naruto spoke as Conan instantly felt her jaw unable to move. She tried moving her body but found that she was completely frozen. I am the product of all of the flaws in this world. I'm the accumulation of all the fear, anger, hate, and suffering in this world. I am the darkness that will correct this world, whether its inhabitants want it or not. You know pain, but you do not know despair, both of which are close friends of mine. You called me arrogant, yet do not know the bounds of your own. This world is in need of correcting, and the way you think is flawed. He stood up and Conan's body became unfrozen, but she did not move. She was shocked to her very core. When you are ready to accept the truth of this reality, to accept what this world is, then you may approach me. Until then, the ground began sprouting roots as his eternal Mangekyo began spinning violently, killing intent surrounding him as Conan felt the cold enter her entire body. Stay away from me. With that, Naruto left a stunned Conan behind. He was the product of this reality. He was the darkness. Chapter 46. Kumo. Naruto felt a shift in the wind just a mile outside of the hidden cloud, but the author shall refer to it as Kumo since it's a lot shorter to write. He stopped walking for a moment. Come on out, you can't hide from me, he said in a monotone. Two different ninja sprang from the misty trees, flanking on either side of him with swords in their clutches. What is your purpose here? One of them asked. Answer quickly or else. The other shouted. Naruto didn't bother looking at either of them. Is that a threat? He scoffed. Who am I fooling? Of course it was all. Let it slide. Because I have business within the village. However, if you are to threaten me again, I won't hesitate to deliver your heads to your raikage. This is not how we treat our guests. See Darui, get over here. A feminine voice called out. Naruto's eyes widened momentarily before reverting back to his emotionless self. Hello, my name is Samui and welcome to Kumo. I apologize on my comrades' behalf. They can be a bit. She trailed off. Guard happy. He finished for her. C gave Naruto a weird look before his eyes widened. This chakra, the censor said as he took several steps back. It's seems some things never change, Naruto said as he took his hood off, revealing his facial features. Good evening, Samui, Darui, and C. It's been what, 11-12 years? Samui squinted and observed the man's appearance until she recognized the 3 whisker marks on each of his cheeks and let out a small gasp. Is that you, Naruto? She asked. Naruto allowed a smirk to cross his face, revealing one of his canines as his Sharingan eyes reflected the sun. It is. Might I say you 3 really haven't changed much, just bigger and taller versions of yourselves from back then, especially you Samui." Samui's eyes narrowed slightly. "Is that a poor attempt at flirting?" Naruto let out a humorless chuckle, chilling the 3 Junin that had participated in the Chunin exams with Naruto. "You can take it as you wish, though I must say Tsunade would be jealous." Samui cocked an eyebrow up. "Well, that aside, why do you have your Sharingan activated? Do you intend on fighting any of us?" She didn't want to fight the blonde-turned-raven-haired man in front of her. Naruto's smirk disappeared, replaced by his usually stoic face. "I don't intend on fighting any of you. No, my Sharingan is on to reminds me of my goals. I'm afraid if I deactivate it, then I'll lose my motivation." "That's understandable, I guess," Darui commented, "and sorry about us. Ready to cut you through like that. We have bad experiences with those wearing that type of cloak." Naruto rose an eyebrow. "My cloak? Oh, you mean the red clouds?" They nodded. "Yeah, I just liked the design and chose to keep it. It won't be a problem, will it?" Samui shrugged. "Whether it will or not is up to the people. One of our Jinchuriki, Yugito Ni, was abducted by 2 S-ranked criminals wearing a similar cloak to yours." She turned to Darui. "And see, what was the organization's name again?" "The Akatsuki." "Yeah," Darui answered, "they just snuck in and held a huge battle without any of us knowing before it was too late." Naruto shook his head. "That's too bad. What do you want within our village?" C asked a tad bit rudely, earning a small glare from Samui and a sigh from Darui. "Like I said before, business," Naruto answered. "I want to speak to the Raikage." "Why?" C asked. "Personal." "Nothing is personal when it comes to the security of our village. Besides, your chakra is cold and malicious, almost 100 times stronger than what it was when we went to the Chunin exams." Naruto sighed. "If I wanted to go into your village and do whatever I want, I would have by now. Or did you think I just slacked off on training since the Chunin exams?" C froze at the question. "Try anything you want," Samui said, her tone holding a warning. "But do not forget that the Raikage is the strongest shinobi in the world." Naruto's eyes widened at that statement. "Escort me to the Raikage's office. I'm sure 3 Junin can stop me from getting into trouble." He walked past them, coming. Darui rolled his eyes at what he thought was arrogance coming from the Namikaze. The 3 Kumo Junin quickly followed Naruto, with Samui taking the lead and walking alongside the former Konoha ninja. Samui noticed the lack of a headband on Naruto's forehead. "Why aren't you wearing your headband?" "Konoha stopped being my home long ago, and I have since abandoned my birthplace. They are nothing to me now." Samui's lips turned into a thin line. "So you're a missing nin?" Naruto shrugged. "Something like that." Samui stopped walking. "Kumo has a strict policy on missing nin. We do not associate with them at all. I'm going to ask you to turn around and leave now." Naruto looked back at her. "No," he simply said. He felt the familiar feeling of cold steel pressed against his neck. "Please do not make me kill you," Samui requested in a hardened tone. "I doubt you could, even if everyone in your village came at me at once. I'm stronger than I was when I destroyed the hidden stone and the hidden mist. I could simply teleport to your Raikage if that's something you'd rather have, but I wanted to do things correctly, and thus I came through the front doors." "Why you destroyed the hidden mist and hidden stone?" C stammered, beads of sweat trailing down the side of his face. Darui and Samui looked at the man standing in front of them nonchalantly, with shock spread across their faces like warm butter on bread. "Indeed," Naruto answered. "Now will you escort a missing nin such as myself to the Raikage, or will I teleport? It's up to you." Samui swallowed the saliva in her mouth. Fine," she stuttered. "We'll escort you to the Raikage, but he will tell you the same thing as I did." Naruto chuckled. "Now That wasn't so hard, was it? The 3 Kumo shinobi and the 1 missing nin strolled through the hidden cloud and quickly arrived at the Raikage's office, where they walked through the wooden door and into the office, where Naruto saw the overly buff Raikage with an open white shirt draped upon his muscles working on some documents before he noticed the 4 people in the room. Yes, he asked in an irritated tone before noticing the stranger in the room. And who are you? This is Naruto. Namikaze Raikage-sama. Samui answered respectfully with a bow. He is a missing nin from the hidden leaf and wishes to discuss something with you, but we do not know what. I looked at Naruto, sizing him up. It's been a long time since I've laid my eyes on you, boy. Kumo does not associate with missing ninja, though, so you may leave. I will not hear your request, even knowing who you are now. Leave? I refuse, Naruto stated, eyes pen snapped in half as he stood up, being several inches taller than Naruto. Did you come here to commit suicide, boy? I said dangerously. Even if I were to hear you out, you don't show any respect. You do not bow before the Kage of this village, and you do not have a healthy fear in your body. Naruto chuckled, earning an angry look from I knew you were an arrogant man. Naruto spat out as if he had a mouth full of syrup. But even I didn't expect it to be of this level. Instantly the desk in front of the Raikage shattered, the splinters of the wood falling everywhere as he appeared in front of Naruto, towering over him easily and looking down at him. Leave or die. You cannot kill me, Naruto said. Samui here said you were the strongest shinobi in the world, something that makes me laugh. You call me boy, yet to me you have the powers of a child. We are both nothing and have zero value, yet I still stand above you in every single way. How dare you? Darui began, anger taking a hold of his system before 3 chakra chains sprouted from his lower back and held themselves just millimeters away from the 3 Junins' throats. I have but a simple question, Naruto said. Tell me where Killer Bee is and I will leave in peace. You are Akatsuki, Samui shouted. I shouldn't have trusted you, you bastard. Naruto chuckled again. You trusted Naruto Namikaze, not me. I may have been him once, but I am not anymore. His name is but. He paused, an accessory to me, like a kunai to a shinobi, just a tool to not be nameless. Come into my village, threaten my shinobi, threaten to take my little brother, and you expect me to leave you alive? Naruto nodded. You little. He stopped when he was suddenly grabbed by his throat by an invisible force. I didn't want to have to destroy another hidden village. Tell me, is the 8 tails really so valuable that you'd risk your entire village? Naruto spoke calmly as I was forced to his knees. The only reason I tried to be diplomatic was so that you'd join my world. I'm not that selfish of a person. I want to save everyone from themselves. This reality is cruel and I intend to wipe it clean. What's the purpose if no one else can experience true bliss as well? What are you talking about? Samui asked. Naruto turned to her and she let out a gasp at the sight of his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Don't concern yourself with that. I only want peace for this world. Remember, in exchange I get to see everyone I've lost. It's a win-win deal, but the sacrifice of one more life for peace is worth it, isn't it? Now tell me where the 8 tails is located and I'll bring you all happiness. You're insane. C shouted. I always knew you were rotten from the core. Naruto didn't speak. The way you killed those fake Iwa genin, I knew it. Are you still conscious? Naruto said as he released the Raikage from his chokehold. The large man grasped his throat and began gasping for air. Good, you are. Please tell me where the 8 tails is at. I won't ask again. And never. Naruto closed his eyes for a moment, the room silent with unease. With a deep breath he opened his eyes. So be it. With that he unsealed a sword from his wrist and quickly decapitated the Raikage, a horrified gasp emitting from the 3 Junin as he spun around, his chains receding back into his lower spine. Do any of you know? We don't, stammered, his eyes locked onto the corpse of the Raikage. Naruto laughed, the sound echoing in their ears as shivers ran up their spines. What happened to you? Samui asked. What could have changed you so rapidly? Naruto began laughing. A bit harder, it turning cynical as he met her gaze. Allow me to show you. With a glance he used his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan to show everything that had transpired during his life. A single tear crawled down her face as she witnessed everything he had gone through. She trailed off, not even sure what to think. Exactly, this world is wrong. I was brought here for one purpose, to purge this reality and build a new one. He spun around. You are too foolish to understand my thoughts from now on. Samui, you will be the 5th Raikage. If anyone has any complaints, killing intent began flooding out of his body, forcing the trio to their knees as they could do nothing but look at him with pure fear, the coldness of his chakra oozing off of his body and grasping at their hearts, squeezing them. Then maybe I'll demolish Kumo and make their fate the same as the hidden stone and mist. He glanced around the room and formed 2 clones. Tear this place apart, you know what we're looking for. He looked back at the 3 shinobi. If you even think of attacking my clones, I'll level this village in a single second. If you care for the children playing in the streets that are ignorant of this world, then you will stay where you sit until they dispel on their own, he threatened. Before being sucked up by a vortex, he would wait for the information. Chapter 47, Cage Summit. The Cage Summit begins now, Mifune, head of the samurai in the north, said authoritatively as he sat in the middle of the circle table. I expect each cage, young or old, to respect each other. Here you are. Equals. Tsunade, who was accompanied by Sasuke Uchiha and Sai, sat on the far left of the table. Her golden honey eyes hardened. Samui sat on the far right side of the table with C and Darui on either side of her, her eyes cold and calculating as she met Tsunade's gaze. Gaara sat closer to Mifune. Temari and Kankuro standing behind him. They were to discuss the threat of the Akatsuki and what they posed to the shinobi nations, Kumo being the ones who summoned them. Hokage Dono, Samui began a tad bit harshly. Are you aware of the damage one of your former shinobi has caused? Tsunade grimaced at the sudden statement that opened the discussion. I am Naruto Namikaze was always a flight risk. He's destroyed not only Iwa but Mist as well. I've also become recently aware that he's killed the late 4th Raikage. You have my condolences. Save them, they aren't needed nor will they help, Samui replied sharply. Raikage Dono, Mifune said in a warning tone. Samui nodded reluctantly. Naruto Namikaze is confirmed to be working with the Akatsuki. That much was confirmed when he ransacked the Raikage's office for any details on the whereabouts of Killer Bi-Sama's younger brother, who is also the Jinchuriki of the 8 Tails. I find this all hard to believe. Gaara began, his usual tone filled with disbelief. The Naruto Namikaze I knew was a selfless person. He saved me from my own inner darkness. To believe he would do such a thing is, with all due respect, Kage-sama, Sasuke butted in, his eyes narrowed and filled with anger. But Naruto Namikaze no longer exists. He died the moment he found the corpse of his daughter. The person who is in his body is nothing but an emotionless monster. Sakura is dead. Gaara asked, his teal eyes widening in shock. I see, that is disappointing to hear. I cherish the memories I've had with her back during the Chunin exams. A frown arched across his face. Sakura had died, the smiling girl. Then no wonder Naruto's spirit was absolutely crushed. Wait. Tsunade began, turning to Samui. Are you sure it was Naruto Namikaze? The last we saw of him was leaving the village to die. For all we know, then it's merely a henge. A henge with a Sharingan and chakra chains. I do not appreciate your skepticism, Hokage Dono. Tsunade Cursed, if Naruto was truly alive, then they were doomed. Where is the Eight Tails Jinchuriki? She suddenly asked, earning surprised looks from the Kumo shinobi. I understand you want to keep him safe. But right now he needs to be heavily guarded. Right now Naruto Namikaze is one of, if not the most powerful man or woman alive. It will not take him long to find the Eight Tails. What are you suggesting? I already have him in a secure location. Samui trailed off, seeing the fire burning in the Hokage's eyes. I'm suggesting a united front, a shinobi alliance against the Akatsuki whom Naruto is working for. We need to work together in order to defeat them and to protect the Eight Tails from them. I'm not sure what they want to do with all nine-tailed beasts, but they already have 8 of the 9, and that's already terrifying to think about. I agree with Hokage Dono, Gaara voiced out. If Naruto is truly fighting against us, then we cannot go about this independently. Almost 3.5 years ago he decimated the One Tails in combat with relative ease, and I doubt he's been slacking within these last few years. He's only gotten stronger. He's also defeated the Nine Tails in combat as well. Sasuke butted in once again. He's told me himself. I can confirm, Gaara replied, nodding at Sasuke's statement. I've heard the Nine Tails say it himself, stronger than the Nine Tails. Mifune gasped out, leaning in his chair in disbelief. What monster is he? The same type of monster this world made me to be. A dark and sinister voice spoke out. Everyone in the room whirled around and saw a cloaked figure sitting casually on one of the banisters. Hello again, everyone, bastard, Samui shouted as she shot up Darui and C, drawing their swords and pointing them at the cloaked man. How dare you show yourself again after what you've done, Naruto? Sasuke whispered. Naruto, he said again, shouting, his sword drawn as lighting flickered over the blade. Take off that damn hood of yours. I know it's you. A chuckle emitted from the figure, sending chills crawling down their backs. Sasuke, Naruto drawled out as he took off his hood, revealing his face. And Sai, how goes it? Tsunade Sai and Sasuke let out a gasp at the sight of him. His Mangekyo had evolved and his hair had changed from his bright golden blonde hair to pitch midnight black. Father, Sai said with narrowed his eyes. How could you do this? I've told you before and I will tell you again, Naruto said in an amused tone. I killed Naruto Namikaze. The man you claim to be your father is dead. I stand in his place, a product of this world's wrongs. What do you want? Tsunade shouted. Simple, hand over the Eight Tails and I'll spare this world of another war. What would you want to do with the Eight Tails? Surely 8 of them are enough, Temari shouted. Not quite, Naruto said. But for the reason as to why, well, to unite this world within the infinite Tsukuyomi, infinite Tsukuyomi. What does that mean? Well, it's officially dubbed Project Tsuki no Mi, a bit of a mouthful, so I prefer to call it the Infinite Tsukuyomi. In the beginning the Sage of Six Paths fought a beast with 10 tails, which was the most powerful being in existence. He could not defeat this beast, even with his immense power, so he did what he could do. He sealed it, Tsunade said bitterly. Within who? Naruto chuckled. Ah, I see. Sasuke has read the Uchiha tablets underneath the Uchiha compound, but only with his Mangekyo. In order to read it fully you would need an evolved Mangekyo Sharingan, something only 2 people on this planet currently possess. But I digress. The Sage of Six Paths sealed it within himself, transcending humanity and gifting himself with tremendous power. With this power he created Ninshu, which his son Indra Otsutsuki created ninjutsu with. Then as he aged he feared that the 10 tails would break free with his death. To ease his fears and concerns he split them into 9 different parts, that being the tailed beasts we know today. My goal is to create the 10 tails once again and gain that power so I may cast an infinite genjutsu across the moon where the light shall reach even the darkest corners of this world, which will put this world's inhabitants into a genjutsu where they will live a content and happy life. They will never know pain nor suffering in this world. It would fulfill their greatest desires. With this peace will have spread across the world, but that peace would only be an illusion. It would not be real. We would all be slowly dying in this world while we live happily in a fake. Gaara said, meeting Naruto's eyes. I agree that peace is only a false peace. Peace can only be acquired when there are actual people to experience what you plan on doing. Will exterminate the human race as we know it. Is that so bad? Naruto questioned, shocking the people in the room. Ever since the tailed beasts were formed, you enslaved them and used them for your own selfish desires. You all fight for power. What have you three cage, or any cage for that matter, done for this world besides make it a true hell to live in? What have you accomplished? The only thing I see is a temporary neutralism where the slightest mishaps can trigger wars and send children to their deaths in this world. Clans are slaughtered because they are feared. Men die in wars. They have nothing to do with. Women are raped to satisfy a carnal instinct. Children are trained to be killers starting at the age of 7 and some even younger. This cycle will continue until there is nothing left. If not now, when? If not me, who? Perhaps it's time to stop pointing fingers and look back at the three pointing right back at you. We have hope that one day things can change. Tsunade shouted, that we can change this world for the better. Hope is nothing but an illusion held by the weak. It is like a sickness. To hope is to have given up on reality. Instead of facing the problems head on, there is no hope. Suddenly he was encased in sand. Only his head poking out as a sharp spear of sand hovered in the air. Gaara manipulating the sand with a hand. Naruto Namikaze, you've been walking in the darkness for a long time. I see that now. Even before Sakura's death, he met the man's gaze. That means even now, even the tiniest rays of light ought to reach your eyes. Naruto chuckled. Oh Gaara, he began, I've closed my eyes long ago. The things I seek only lie in the darkness. A single tear went down Gaara's face. I know, he whispered before thrusting the spear forward, wanting to kill the man he had looked up to for so long. Quickly and painlessly. Well, that was dramatic. Naruto's deep voice rang out from behind them, causing the shinobi to spin around and see him standing on the ceiling upside down. Does that mean you have no intention of handing over the 8 tails? Like hell we are, Sasuke shouted. We aren't going to hand this world over to you. He's right, Samui shouted. I won't hand over. Naruto let out a sigh. Very well. His body flickered to where he was standing moments ago. Then I hereby declare the 4th Shinobi War. The next time we meet it will be on the battlefield, and I have no intention of going easy. Sasuke, if you wish to fight me even remotely on even ground. Itachi Uchiha's eyes are under the floorboards of the Namikaze master bedroom. I hope you put them to good use. He disappeared in a swirling vortex, disappearing from their sight. He had a war to prepare for, and so did they. Chapter 48 Hidden Secrets. Naruto and Obito watched from a mountain as pain attacked Kumo with ease, flattening the village in seconds as they watched him interrogate several Kumo shinobi, asking about Killer Bee's whereabouts, but as far as they could tell none of them knew. Naruto. Obito began, his arms crossed. Why did you want me to send pain here? You already killed the 4th Raikage and put the 5th Raikage into power. You couldn't find anything, so why destroy the village? Well, I interrupted the Kage Summit as you already know, but I also declared the 4th Great Shinobi War while I was there. Without the 4th Raikage, Kumo is already crippled, but I want them to taste despair and hopefully surrender without too much fighting. So why pain? You could claim that you've destroyed 3 hidden villages, Obito reasoned, because they already know what I'm capable of. Naruto replied easily, I want them to know what the Akatsuki is made of, and as far as they know, each member is the same strength as Pain, who just leveled an entire village with an almighty push at will. Make their hope crumble into the dirt and leave them in a state of shock and despair. Oh, Obito said, forming an O with his mouth. I see, that's quite devious, little brother. Naruto allowed a smirk to cross his face. Thank you, though you would have done the same eventually with the hidden leaf. If I had not joined you, Obito shrugged. Perhaps, but you were always to be kept alive. Once we extracted the Kyuubi out of your body, I would have made Nagato bring you back to life whether you had intentions of joining me or not. Naruto chuckled. It was never a choice, brother, we both know that. With that he began walking away. I may have chosen this path, but it was the path that was set for me. Since the beginning I simply chose to run down it rather than walk. That is true, Obito thought. I always intended on you working with me during the last phase of the infinite Tsukuyomi plan. Naruto disappeared in a kamui, swirling into a vortex before disappearing. Obito looked back at Nagato, who had just finished killing 5 Junin. Very well, Nagato, I shall see you later. He then disappeared in his own kamui. Naruto appeared from a vortex in front of the graveyard of Konoha. He quickly put his hood up around his raven locks before walking through the dimly lit graveyard. The moon shined brightly overhead and lighting his path as he weaved through the graves to the newer ones. He looked down at a particular stone and saw Anko Mitarashi carved into the granite. He calmly sat down on his knees, his Sharingan activated as he looked down. I couldn't protect you, he said in a calm-mannered tone. I failed both you and Sakura after I made a promise that I would protect you both, and now I'm bringing peace to the world so I can see you again, so I can see both of you. He looked to his left and saw Sakura Namikaze engraved onto the stone. I wasn't strong enough to save you, but I promise. He stood up, wiping the dirt off of his knees. I won't fail again. I knew you would come here. A female voice rang out. Naruto turned around and saw Yugo Uzuki standing just a few feet in front of him. I've been waiting. I've been coming here every night. Why want a slice at the traitor? Naruto asked with a humorless chuckle at the end. Or is it revenge? I did kill many of your Anbu comrades. They had the chances to back down. Even if they were my friends, they were fools to challenge someone like you. Naruto looked at her emotionlessly. Are you saying Tsunade made it a choice to come after me? Yugo nodded. She did, after I refused the initial assignment, that is. Naruto's eyes widened slightly. You refused her orders? Another nod. Naruto's lips curled slightly upwards. I'm impressed. Not many would defy their cage. Many more would if it meant facing you. You're too powerful even for cage-level shinobi. It's hard to argue with that assessment, he stated before fully facing her. What are you doing here, Yugo? You saved me, Yugo said, almost meekly, looking down at the grass. In more ways than one, you saved me from my hatred for the sand. After Hayate's death, you saved me from enemy shinobi, and you saved me from myself. I owe you my life. I don't want it, Naruto instantly replied. This world is fake. In the real world, everyone we've ever lost is alive. There is no pain. Yugo shook her head. There is always pain, because pain makes us human. An illusion is not a better world. In the end, you will be dooming humanity. We all age, we all die. I'm not going to stop you. I'm not sure I can, but right now what you're doing is only going to result in the extinction of humanity. Naruto looked into her brown eyes with his apathetic gaze. I'm a selfish person, he said. I just want to be happy. Yugo slowly walked up to him, watching as he didn't move an inch as she did so. You can be happy in this world, she said as she took another step closer, being just a foot away from the raven-haired in front of her. No, I can't, Naruto spoke. It's taken too much from me. Yes you can, Yugo said gently, taking another bold step forward. Inches away from the man in front of her. I thought the same before I found out I could love something else, someone else. He could feel her warm breath on his collarbone. She slowly reached forward, her hands going around his neck and pulling down his hood, his Sharingan blazing as he looked deeply into her brown eyes, the crimson almost hypnotizing as she briefly licked her red lipsticked lips before stepping on her tippy toes to reach him before placing her lips onto his. She slowly moved her lips on his unmoving ones, her eyes closed. Naruto, in a state of shock, disengaged the kiss. With a quick step back, I can't, he whispered, his Sharingan disappearing and revealing his vibrant blue eyes. It's not right. You can, Yugo whispered as she suddenly grabbed him and swung her arms around his sides. I don't want you to be alone anymore. She looked up, meeting his scared blue eyes. Please indulge my own selfish desires for the night. Please let me feel loved again. Naruto knew he was standing right in front of Anko's gaze, the woman he loved. He knew this was wrong, but his Sharingan appeared before he captured Yugo's lips with his own passionately, his arms going down to her lower hips as he pulled her closer to himself. He was not Naruto. Naruto was dead. Yugo's warm brown eyes opened the light from the window of her bedroom, peeking out from behind the curtains and shining in her gaze. She slowly sat up, the blanket barely covering her naked body. She looked to her right and saw the empty spot that was occupied the other night by none other than Naruto Namikaze. She quickly laid back down. She would have to wait longer before she saw him again, if she would ever see him again. She loved him. She knew it was wrong to love a criminal, but she did ever since he saved her in that forest and held her. She had loved him. She was a mess, but that was okay. He was a mess too. Chapter 49 Battlefield. Naruto sat lazily on a large cliff made of hardened rock dust, moving in the wind next to him alongside Mu the second Tsuchikage, who was currently inhabited by one of Orochimaru's old lackeys. Kabuto Yakushi Obito had struck an alliance with the Snake's apprentice, reassuring Naruto that his power would be able to help win the war a lot easier. Naruto had shrugged at the thought and told Obito he was all the help his older brother needed. Obito had laughed then. You know Naruto Namikaze, came Kabuto's voice out of Emu's body. I remember you killing Orochimaru-sama rather brutally. Is that a grudge? Naruto asked nonchalantly as he looked on at the army of thousands of shinobi from several different villages marched towards them. Not at all, Kabuto said with a sickening tone, his voice sounding eerily similar to Orochimaru's. If not for you, I doubt I would have been able to get a hold of his cells and become what I am today. All right, Naruto replied. Are we waiting on something? Kabuto was quiet for a moment before speaking. Someone, he corrected. Your leader believes he will be quite beneficial. Naruto's lips curled downwards. Who? Kabuto grinned from Emu's bandaged body. None other than Madara Uchiha. I'm sure you'd like to meet one of the founding fathers of Konoha, your home village. Naruto stood up, his Sharingan eyes squinting. It seems Gaara and his older sister are leading the charge. I wonder what they think. Quantity will do against quality. Emu's body straightened up. He's here, was all he said before Naruto heard the sound of feet crashing on the rock next to him, causing loose dirt to fly into the air. Naruto turned his head and saw Madara emerge from the dust wearing his old red armor. He had long black hair that reached down to his lower hip with cracked skin, his Sharingan activated with nothing but black behind them, signifying his presence as a reanimation. Madara Uchiha, the words rolled Naruto's tongue like a foreign language. It's a pleasure to be working with someone I've measured myself to countless times. Madara looked at Naruto with his Sharingan eyes. And what do you think? Naruto shrugged. I'm not sure, though I did surpass Hashirama quite a bit ago, though I'm sure you Have a few tricks up that old sleeve of yours, Madara laughed. You surpassing Hashirama, not even I could beat that monster of a fool, and to me you are but a child. Careful Madara, Kabuto chided. Lightly, this is Naruto Namikaze. He destroyed both the hidden mist and the hidden stone. He's the strongest shinobi alive if my sources are correct. Madara's eyes widened slightly. Perhaps we shall see how well can you dance, boy. Naruto twisted his neck, a loud popping sound emitting from his bones as his Sharingan evolved into its eternal Mangekyo state, surprising Madara even further. Dancing? No, I prefer the word slaughter. Ask Kabuto what I did to his little shinobi force when they decided to attack the hidden leaf with the hidden sand. Naruto and Madara quickly jumped into the air along with Kabuto in Emu's body as sand passed underneath them. Come on, Gaara, Naruto shouted. I thought you could do better than that. Then again, Shukaku isn't here to help you anymore, is he? Gaara grimaced. He had just barely won the fight with the third Raikage, and now he had to face this. Naruto and Madara. This was turning into a rough day. He was the Jinchuriki of the One-Tails. Madara asked, I wonder how he's still alive. Some revival jutsu privy to the only elder in the Sand Village who still had merit to their name. She gave her life for his own for some reason. Madara didn't say anything. Are you two ready? Kabuto asked condescendingly. That regiment isn't going to shred itself apart. With enough psychological warfare they will, Naruto responded as he jumped off the large rock. But I'm no Yamanaka. Madara looked over at Kabuto. I hope you don't expect me to babysit. Kabuto shook his head. Of course not. Naruto Namikaze is stronger than your successor. Madara's eyes widened and he peered down at Naruto. On what basis is this a claim from yourself or that boy? From your masked successor, I believe. Mew, Kabuto said with a small grin. He even used Nagato's Rinnegan to revive him after he extracted the 9 tails. He's been quite useful. Madara looked at Naruto curiously. I guess I'll have to see for myself. He jumped off the rock as well and landed right next to Naruto. They seem to be paralyzed in fear. I wouldn't blame them. Naruto responded, your name is feared amongst the shinobi nations even more so than my own. They fear us, rightfully so, Madara said, his Sharingan turning into its eternal Mangekyo state. Two wielders of such eyes can strike fear in even God's heart. Naruto smirked. Good. Naruto, Gaara cried out, it's not too late, you can come back from this, he pleaded. Naruto shook his head. Children and their idealistic ways, I'll never understand them. Madara rose an eyebrow. You're still a child yourself. Naruto shook his head. I'm 22. In just a few days I've been a shinobi since I was 8. I know this world better than any of these children who refuse to grow up grasping at straws for any form of life, but it's our jobs to rid them of that ignorant thought process by taking away the life they've taken for granted. I see, Madara said. Maybe if you were older I would have chosen you instead of Obito. Naruto shrugged. Maybe, he admitted, but it took a lot for me to join his side. He is my pseudo-older brother, but I'll tell you the same thing I said to him. He met Madara's undead gaze. I was never given a choice on the path I was given. I just choose to run instead of walk. A wise choice, Madara replied before turning his head to the army of shinobi who were standing still and awaiting the two legendary shinobi to attack first. How are you with joint attacks? Madara asked as he flexed his fingers with a tiny frown. I can't wait till I get my blood running through my veins again. I want the thrill. I'm decent at them, Naruto said as he popped his knuckles. How about this? I go first and you get the ones I don't after a minute or so. Oh, so you want to show off? Madara barked with a chuckle. Very well, my descendant. Show me what prowess you have on the battlefield. Show me how you dance. Naruto began walking towards the Shinobi Alliance. Very well, Naruto replied as he broke into a small jog. The Shinobi Alliance tensed up, their bodies shaking in fear of what was about to happen. Naruto saw some sweating profusely, some were crying, and some were even praying. The last one surprised him. There were no gods that could save them. There were no gods on the battlefield except him. They roared as he broke out into a sprint, reaching the front lines in a split second before tearing through them like a kunai through a piece of paper, their arms and legs being broken before they were stabbed by their own kunai or having their neck twisted backward. Naruto ducked under one shinobi's closed fist and immediately broke it over his shoulder, bending it backward as he flipped over the shinobi and used him as a meat shield as several shuriken and kunai impaled his body as he screamed, dying as he fell to the ground. Naruto side-stepped a sword strike and grabbed the wrist of the shinobi and rolled over his back, break the man's arm with a yank as the sword came into his possession as he wielded it to slit the throats of 5 descending shinobi who had foolishly thought they could gain ground on him. From the air he whirled around and decapitated the man who had owned the sword, who had been screaming in pain from his broken arm. 10 seconds, Madara muttered to himself as he watched his clansmen demolish the Shinobi Alliance made of sandleaf and a spare few cloud shinobi. He watched Naruto stab someone that had tried to use the headhunter jutsu on him through the ground and pulled the sword up, a mix of blood and dirt covering the steel blade before he threw it cutting through several shinobi as he stretched out his hand and flexed his fingers, the sword's momentum increasing as it began changing directions, randomly cutting into whatever came near it without mercy. You are nothing, Naruto whispered as he jumped into the air making a single hand sign, and you will die. Nothing. He blew out the largest fireball Madara had ever seen, it barely being able to get stopped by a combination of 5 shinobi who knew the water wall jutsu. Madara decided Naruto had enough fun and that it was his turn to join in. He jumped into the air and blew several fireballs out of his mouth, knowing that the mist, the water from the 5 shinobi and the fire from Naruto's jutsu would hide his flames until they were too late. He let a smirk cross his zombified face as he heard the screams of people getting burned alive as his jutsu hit their intended targets. He heard the sound of 2 feet landing next to him softly and saw Naruto standing nonchalantly by his side. They're panicked, he stated. Madara hummed in agreement as the steam and smoke were suddenly blown away from Temari, who had extended her fan to its third son. She was glaring murderously at the two. You dance well, Madara commented. It's an honor hearing the words from one of the strongest shinobi to ever live, Naruto replied, a hint of pride lacing his usual monotone voice. What are we going to do now? Madara thought about it for a second. On one hand, I could use my Rinnegan and crush them with 2 boulders, but that would most likely kill you in the process. We could use our Susanos and destroy them all in a matter of seconds, or my preference, I could use my wood style and watch them squirm for a bit longer. Naruto glanced at Madara. You want them to suffer, he calmly said, pointing out the obvious. Is that an issue? Not at all, Naruto replied, but I have wood style as well. Just tell me which jutsu and I can help with it. Madara's eyes widened. Did Obito give you Hashirama's cells? Naruto nodded. Very well. Do you know wood release secret technique Nativity of a World of Trees? Naruto nodded. Good, then let's get to it. Naruto and Madara both formed a hand sign in unison as a surge of chakra suddenly exploded from them. Gaara's eyes widened at the sight. Everyone get back, he roared as loudly as he could as everyone immediately began retreating, running for their lives from the 2 Sharingan wielders. Wood release secret technique Nativity of a World of Trees, Madara And Naruto yelled at the same time, the ground exploding as wood sprouted out of nowhere and began crashing through the desert-like area, destroying any obstacles in its path as it raged towards the alliance. As it got closer, Naruto and Madara released the sign and watched as it continued going. It would grow until it hit its intended target, or until someone stopped it, an unlikely possibility. Suddenly a line of black flames engulfed the trees, stopping them in their tracks as it burned straight through the wood, destroying the jutsu. Naruto rose an eyebrow as the burning black flames disappeared and revealed Sasuke Uchiha glaring at both of them, a third Uchiha with the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Madara laughed. This is quite amusing. Naruto turned to the old clan leader. Obito also possesses the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, so there are four. Madara's grin only increased in size as four more figures emerged from the smoke. Tsunade, Samui, Asuma and Gaara stood next to Sasuke, separating their enemies from the rest of the alliance. We will not let you pass any further, Tsunade shouted. We will beat you right here and now, Samui yelled, pointing a sword directly at Naruto. I will avenge my master, Sasuke roared, his eyes burning with rage. Naruto felt his lips twitch upward. Things just got interesting. And cut. Next part after 10 likes and 5 comments.